Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. The Opening Fusion in One Punch Man. Chapter 81. Seeing Bai Yi take off his mask, a cold glint flashed in the eyes of Lu Qi and Bruno. Then they also took off their masks and silently followed Bai Yi towards the tavern in the center of the town. This time they were acting as the night organization, so they needed to wear masks, so as not to let others know their true identity. When Bai Yi takes off his mask, it means that death is the only way for everyone who has seen his true face on this island. Lu Qi and Bruno didn't feel anything wrong with Bai Yi's actions. Because they both came out of cruel spy training, their hands were stained with an unknown amount of blood. At this time, Hubert also introduced to Bai Yi with a kind face the specialty of Whiskey Mountain whiskey. He didn't even realize that the 3 fat sheep he was carrying were actually 3 Shinigami. And he himself was going further and further on the road to death. When Bai Yi and the other 3 sat down, the tavern resumed its previous bustle. Hubert brought the steaming barbecue and the fragrant wine in front of Bai Yi and the other 3. Eat, this is freshly made by the chef, it tastes absolutely great. And this whiskey is also a specialty of our place, you can't even drink it outside. Hubert looked forward to it as he recommended it to Bai Yi and the others. Bai Yi picked up the wine glass in front of him and smelled it. It was indeed very fragrant and tempting. In Hubert's impatient eyes, when Bai Yi raised his glass and was about to drink it, suddenly I felt a gust of fragrant wind, and my right hand holding the wine glass was touched, causing the wine to scatter on the floor, and some beer to splash on the robe. I'm sorry, I spilled wine on you, let me wipe it for you. The girl with long sea blue hair that reached her waist said to Bai Yi apologetically. He also took out some pieces of paper and helped Bai Yi wipe his robe. Then, he handed Bai Yi some pieces of paper and asked Bai Yi to wipe his hands too. After Bai Yi took the paper, he immediately noticed something was wrong. While Hubert was scolding the girl, Bai Yi spread out the paper handed over by the girl and took a look. It was written in Wan Shu's handwriting. There are drugs in the wine and meat. Don't eat them. The guys here are not good people. You should leave here quickly. After Bai Yi read it, an imperceptible smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and with a force, the note was shattered into powder. At this time, Hubert also finished scolding the girl and said to Bai Yi apologetically. I'm sorry, people in our town are so careless, I accidentally bumped into you. As he said that, he filled up the wine glass in front of Bai Yi again. The glass just now was a pity. Try it now, it tastes very good. Vivi, who had already walked aside, hid in the corner and secretly observed Hubert and Bai Yi. She had already reminded the boy just now, hoping that the boy could see his reminder. This is the limit of what she can do. At this time, Bai Yi seemed to have not seen the note, picking up Hubert's filled wine glass and putting it to his mouth, ready to drink it. When Hubert and Vivi saw Bai Yi's actions, their hearts were already in their throats. But at this critical moment, Bai Yi suddenly put down the wine glass again and asked Hubert. Why are you so nice to us? Is there any drug involved? Listening to Bai Yi's inquiry, Hubert suddenly broke out in a cold sweat, and said with a forced smile. How is this possible? The residents of our town have always been warm and hospitable to every outsider. Bai Yi suddenly realized, so that's it. Then I blamed you wrongly, I'm so sorry. Hubert wiped away the beads of sweat on his forehead while waving his hand, and said, these are all small things. We are all good people here. Now, Bai Yi drank all the wine in the glass directly in front of Hubert and Vivi. After finishing the drink, Bai Yi smacked his lips and sighed, this wine tastes good. After Bai Yi drank the wine, Lu Qi and Bruno also raised their glasses and drank. Seeing Bai Yi drink the wine, Hubert instantly felt relieved, knowing that the 3 fat sheep in front of him could not escape. Vivi, on the other hand, looked at Bai Yi and others anxiously. She had clearly reminded the boy just now. But why did he drink it anyway? Vivi, forget it, your behavior just made Hubert suspicious, we have done our best. Ikaram walked to Vivi and persuaded softly. Vivi let out a long sigh and said, let's see if there is any chance to rescue them later. After all, it's 3 lives, we can't give up so easily. Ikaram looked at Vivi's determined face and stopped trying to persuade her. Princess Vivi has been so kind since she was a child and treats her servants like them very well. Because of this, they, the palace guards, are willing to use their lives to protect the royal family. Knowing that the overall situation was decided, Hubert smiled even more amiably, and kept pouring wine and eating barbecue for Bai Yi and others. And Bai Yi and the three of them are also welcome to come. I will eat as much as you want. There is no way, the journey of the three of them was really too bitter. Now, if you have something to eat and drink, of course you have to enjoy it. As for the drugs mixed with wine and barbecue, they didn't take it seriously at all. For Lu Qi, with his strong physique and the enhancement brought by the fruit ability, this drug is decomposed directly after entering the body and has no effect at all. Bruno directly uses the fruit's ability to open an air door in his body, and transfers the food he eats into his mouth through the air door to other places to enjoy his mouth. And not to mention Bai Yi. This kind of drug can be used as food every day and night, and nothing will happen. While Hubert waited anxiously, the three of them and Bai Yi suddenly watched the sun rise again from the sea level in the middle of the night. The chef in the kitchen who was responsible for cooking was dumbfounded. Am I cooking for people, or for Poseidon-like creatures? More than a dozen of us cooks are exhausted. How can you three of us still eat it? Hubert was already sleepy after waiting. When he was confused, he saw his subordinate walking up to him with an embarrassed look on his face and saying, "Boss, all the drugs and ingredients have been eaten. Something is wrong with these three guys." Hearing this, Hubert suddenly became energetic and looked at the three people who had been drugged for half the night. Everyone was in high spirits and in better shape than him. How could Hubert not understand? He kicked the table over and said angrily, "You three are playing with me, right? Brothers, do it." The residents, who had been waiting impatiently, surrounded Bai Yi and the three of them with weapons. The most excited people among the crowd were the dozen or so cooks, who might have been really mad after cooking all night. He picked up the pan and came out. Bai Yi looked at Hubert without fear and said with a smile, "I'm finally going to take action. I've been waiting to be full for such a long time. What are you waiting for? Waiting to die?" Listening to Bai Yi's words, Hubert felt a flash of panic in his heart. But looking at the more than 100 brothers around him who were eager to try, they seemed to have the confidence and said fiercely, "Hurry up and hand over the valuables you have on you, and I can leave you a whole body." Bai Yi said calmly, "Let's do it. They have made food for us all night, and we are really tired. Let them have a good rest." As soon as the words fell, Lu Qi and Bruno turned into killing machines, clearing away the surrounding enemies as quickly as possible. For a time, miserable screams continued, and bright red blood flowers bloomed in front of Bai Yi's eyes. Hearing the noise from the crowd, an anxious look appeared on Vivi's delicate cheeks. She stood on tiptoes and tried to look at the white knight in the middle of the crowd. "What can we do? Hubert is already taking action." Vivi felt a strong sense of powerlessness in her heart, thinking about the continuous civil strife in the kingdom of Alabasta under the control of Crocodile. Thousands of people die every day from war or famine. In this regard, as the eldest princess of the Alabasta kingdom, she could only sit back and watch this happen. There is absolutely no way to stop it. And now, 3 innocent people were about to be brutally killed in front of her, and she also had no choice. Vivi realized at this moment that she could not protect anyone at all. Even she herself needs Ikaram's protection. Seeing Vivi's sad look, Ikaram felt very distressed. God is so unfair to Vivi, causing her to suffer so much pain and bear so much pressure at just 15 years old. Vivi squatted down and leaned against the wall, burying her head between her knees and sobbing softly. No longer looking at the tragedy happening in the tavern, Ikaram also squatted down to comfort Vivi. After all, he knew what was going on inside. Faced with being surrounded by hundreds of people, the 3 of them had no power to fight back. But after listening for a while, Vivi and Ikaram realized something was wrong. Aren't there 3 people? This scream has been heard hundreds of times. Can these 3 people scream like this? So the 2 of them secretly leaned by the window and looked in. This sight frightened both of them. The scene in the tavern was extremely bloody, with corpses lying everywhere on the ground, and blood flowing freely on the ground. The way these people died was a penetrating wound in the heart, as if they had been shot through. It can be seen that the 2 people who took action were extremely skilled in killing methods, and they were basically fatal with one blow. Vivi wiped her eyes, which were red from crying, and looked inside again with wide eyes. The scene in the tavern remained unchanged. The young man in black was sitting in front of the counter, leisurely tasting whiskey. It seems that he has become accustomed to the killings happening around him. In less than a moment, except for Bai Yi and the other three, everyone in the tavern was eliminated by Lu Qi and Bruno. Only then did Vivi realize, how could these three people need her help? For a long time these three people were more cruel than Hubert. Thinking about her previous actions to warn the boy, Vivi felt angry and funny. But Ikaram beside her was not in such a good mood as Vivi. Those three guys were ruthless and killed people like crazy. They were not good people at first glance. And the two guys who did it were very strong. Even Hubert's professional bounty hunters were easily killed by the opponent. If they turned to attack him, it would be impossible for him to protect Princess Vivi. Thinking of this, Ikaram picked up Vivi and wanted to run away, wanting to be as far away from them as possible. But before he could take 2 steps, he was blocked by Lu Qi and Bruno. Ikaram protected Vivi tightly behind him and said nervously, "We wanted to save you just now. You are not going to take action against us, are you?" Vivi suddenly realized at this time that with the other party's strength, she actually didn't need her help at all. And he and Ikaram witnessed with their own eyes the scene where they killed Hubert and others. If they attack themselves in order to prevent the news from leaking out. Thinking of this, Vivi's face gradually turned pale. At this moment, Bai Yi's voice came from the tavern. "Forget it, there's no need to attack them." Lu Qi and Bruno were stunned, knowing that these two people had seen their true faces. If the news gets out, wouldn't their disguise be in vain? However, the two of them did not ask out their doubts. Anyway, they could just obey Lord Bai Yi's orders. Vivi followed the sound and saw Bai Yoruichi looking at her with a smile on her face and said, "If I remember correctly, you should be Princess Vivi of the Kingdom of Alabasta, right?" Hearing this, Vivi and Ikaram felt chilled. The mysterious young man in front of her actually knew her true identity. Could it be that the three of them are here for me? Vivi stood up and asked coldly, "How do you know my identity?" Bai Yi continued, "Not only do I know your identity, I also know what you want to do. For the sake of the reminder you just gave me, maybe we can make a deal." Vivi frowned and asked suspiciously, "What deal?" "You tell me the specific whereabouts of Pluton, and I will help you deal with Crocodile." The reason Bai Yi wanted to find Pluton was not because he wanted to obtain Pluton. On the contrary, Bai Yi wanted to try whether Pluton's finished battleship could also be recycled by the system. After all, even Pluton's design drawings are worth 1,000 world resources. If you really find Pluton's finished battleship, on the premise that it can be recycled, its value should be tens of thousands of world source power. So whether it succeeds or not, Bai Yi wants to try it. But although Bai Yi knew the general location of Pluton, it should be near the Alabasta Palace. But this target is too big, it is quite troublesome to find, and it can easily attract the attention of others. Might as well make a deal with Vivi on the condition of killing Crocodile. Anyway, Bai Yi came here with the intention of killing Crocodile. In this way, Pluton's finished warship is equivalent to getting it for nothing. There is no loss in blood. At this time, Vivi is caught in a war between heaven and man, although she really wants to agree to Bai Yi's deal. But the purpose of their existence is to protect Pluton. If she agreed without permission, she would be violating the ancestral precepts. Seeing Vivi's tangled look, Bai Yi spoke again, "If solving Crocodile alone is not enough, I can add another condition. Help you quell the civil strife in the Alabasta Kingdom." Vivi looked at Bai Yi with a shocked face, "Are you telling the truth?" Bai Yi smiled confidently, "You have no other choice but to trust me now, right?" Vivi finally made up her mind at this time and said decisively, "Okay, I promise you." Bai Yi was not surprised at all by Vivi's agreement. Because every additional day of civil strife is a painful torture for the residents of Alabasta. Thousands of people die every day because of Crocodile. And Pluton is just a dead thing. One dead thing in exchange for the survival of millions of people. In exchange for the continuation of the Alabasta Kingdom. Vivi can still settle this account. But Bai Yi looked at Vivi and asked curiously, "Are you so sure that I can solve Crocodile?" Vivi's smart eyes looked at Bai Yi and said, "As you said, do I have a better choice now?" Bai Yi smiled, he admired this princess who was only 15 years old. "Then I wish us a happy cooperation." A pleasure to work with. Vivi didn't know whether the decision she made today was right or wrong. But at this moment, she chose to believe Bai Yi. Believe this, she only met the man once. Led by Vivi, a group of people set out towards Albana, the capital of the Alabasta Kingdom. Along the way, Bai Yi witnessed with his own eyes the miserable life of the residents of the Basta Kingdom. Due to perennial drought, many farmers have no harvest and can only survive on the surplus grain from previous years. But the remaining food will eventually be used up. Slightly younger men in their prime can either escape from the Alabasta Kingdom and find a way to survive. Some young people who were unwilling to leave their hometown launched a rebellion driven by crocodile. It is believed that as long as the royal rule is overthrown, rainfall can be restored to the dry kingdom of Alabasta. What is left are more helpless elderly people and young children, begging on the street with bowls in their hands. Although Bai Yi was not the virgin, she still couldn't bear to see this situation. Distribute the excess food and fresh water stored in the system space to the elderly and children. At the same time, he also took out a video phone bug to record what happened in the Alabasta Kingdom. Vivi was very surprised to see Bai Yi willing to give food and water to the refugees. I couldn't help but feel a little more curious about the mysterious Bai Yi. Along the way, I kept secretly observing Bai Yi. Unfortunately, after leaving Whiskey Mountain, the three of them put on their masks. Nothing could be seen through the dark mask. This made Vivi even more curious about Bai Yi. What are the identities of these three people? Why wear a mask? Under the leadership of Vivi, a group of people passed through the trail. Soon we arrived at Albana, the capital of Alabasta. When they were about to enter Albana, a black figure shot down from the sky. A huge falcon descended from the sky, its wings spread out, and it was 5 meters long. 2 claws strong enough to tear through the steel plate were fiercely grabbed at Bai Yi and the others. When Vivi looked up and saw the falcon descending from the sky, joy appeared on her face. She waved to the sky and said, "Uncle Bell, I'm here." Bell, a person with bird fruit and falcon form abilities, is the adjutant of the Alabasta Kingdom Guards and the strongest warrior of the Alabasta Kingdom. She is the person closest to Vivi besides Ikaram, and has always taken care of Vivi as her own sister. Because he has the ability of the bird fruit, he has the ability to fly. He has been responsible for investigation and inspection work around the palace. When Bell was inspecting today, he happened to see Princess Vivi coming back from the palace after leaving the palace for a year. Before she had time to rejoice, she noticed 3 mysterious people wearing black robes and masks following Vivi. Subconsciously I thought these 3 people were from Crocodile. This time I came to Albana to use Princess Vivi to blackmail King Cobra. That's why they launched a surprise attack to rescue Princess Vivi from 3 mysterious men. When Vivi saw Belle actually attacking Bai Yi, she was shocked and shouted loudly, "Don't do it." Belle, who was swooping down like a cannonball, was directly kicked in the midsection by Lu Qi and took off on the spot. Belle let out an extremely painful bird's cry, his ribs were broken, and his chest was directly sunken. Bruno and Lu Qi have worked together for many years and have a tacit understanding. The moment Lu Qi took action, Bruno opened the air door and appeared directly above Belle. Using the iron block, one of the 6 marine forms, the weight of his body instantly increased by more than 10 times, directly pressing on Belle. Belle instantly felt as if his spine was broken and his wings were unable to exert force. The whole bird fell like a meteorite and smashed into the desert. Lu Qi's reaction was extremely quick. When Belle was unable to fight back, he used Xiao to come to Belle's side. He held his fingers together like a sword and stabbed Belle in the head. As long as it penetrates, Belle will definitely die. Vivi's heart almost jumped out of her chest as she watched. Her eyes were red, water mist condensed in her eyes, and her face was full of worry. It's not like Lu Qi and Bruno didn't hear Vivi shouting not to do anything. But they didn't care. For the 2 of them, they will only obey Bai Yi's orders. Belle just launched an attack on them, as long as Bai Yi didn't speak. Then Belle can only be an enemy. Naturally, you should treat your enemies without mercy and deal with them as soon as possible. Just when Lu Qi's finger was still 1 centimeter away from Belle's head. Belle could even clearly feel the tingling sensation coming from the skin of his head. Bai Yi said emotionlessly from the side, "Stop." Lu Qi immediately stopped without any hesitation and stood back behind Bai Yi with Bruno. Vivi did not rush to Belle's side immediately to check Belle's injury. He didn't blame Bai Yi loudly for taking action against Belle. Instead, with red eyes, he bowed to Bai Yi and apologized, "I'm very sorry. Uncle Belle should have thought you were bad people, so he attacked you. I apologize to you on his behalf. At the same time, thank you for not killing Uncle Belle, thank you." After saying this, Vivi hurried to Belle's side to check Belle's injuries. At this time, Belle was no longer able to maintain his beast form and turned into a human body. Because he fell heavily from a high altitude, his head was badly bruised and many bones in his body were broken. In addition, Lu Qi kicked with all his strength, his abdomen was sunken, and he kept vomiting blood from the corner of his mouth, which even contained some internal organ fragments. It looks like it may not be able to hold on for much longer. "Uncle Belle, are you okay?" Seeing Belle's appearance, Vivi could no longer pretend to be strong. Tears kept falling from her cheeks and she kept muttering, "It's all my fault. It's all my fault." Belle already knew that he had made a mistake, and that the three mysterious people were not enemies. So, using all his strength, he said, "It's not your fault, Princess Vivi. It's good that you can come back alive. The king misses you very much." After hearing Belle's words, Vivi cried even more sadly, and kept wiping the blood from the corner of Belle's mouth with her hands. He didn't even care about the blood on his hands and clothes. And Ikaram also knelt down beside Belle with a look of grief on his face. He did not expect that he and his good brother, who had not seen each other for a year, would actually be separated from each other when they met again. But who can blame this? If Belle hadn't taken the initiative, the three of them wouldn't have launched a counterattack. And the other party was already showing mercy. At this time, Bai Yi looked at Vivi, who was wearing pear blossoms and raining rain, with some curiosity. He completely did not expect that when Belle was seriously injured, Vivi was able to take the initiative to apologize to him and thank him for showing mercy. This was really beyond Bai Yi's expectation. Whenever Vivi complained about anything just now, Bai Yi would ignore the matter and just sit back and watch Belle being seriously injured and die. But now, Bai Yi walked up to Vivi and took out the potion he had just redeemed from the system store. "Inject this into his body and his life will be saved, and his injuries will gradually heal." Vivi raised her head and looked at Bai Yi's dark mask with eyes red from crying. And those eyes without any emotion. In this situation, in order to save Belle's life, he still had no choice but to believe in Bai Yi. Vivi held back her sobs, bit her red lips lightly with her teeth, and took the potion from Bai Yi's hand with a look of pity on her face. He said softly, "Thank you." Because Vivi had no experience in this area, she asked Icarium to be injected. Not far away, Lu Qi saw the familiar needle, the familiar green potion, and the familiar injection method. I couldn't help but shiver. It was a painful memory that he would never forget. At this time, Lu Qi looked at Belle with a hint of sympathy. "Brother, after you get the injection, you will be able to experience what life is worse than death." "What do you mean? If I could choose, I would rather die on the spot." Under Lu Qi's slightly pitiful gaze, Belle's body continued to twitch slightly after injecting the medicine. Lu Qi thought to himself, it's coming, and the next step will be the most painful time. But what surprised Lu Qi was that Belle's body had no reaction at all after the convulsion ended. The wounds on the body surface gradually recovered, and his complexion gradually became rosy. In less than 5 minutes, Belle could barely stand up and walk. Vivi and Icarium, who saw Belle's recovery with their own eyes, were overjoyed and kept thanking Bai Yi. Lu Qi's lips hidden under the mask kept moving. If you listened closely, you could still hear Lu Qi's disbelieving voice. How is this possible? He actually recovered so painlessly. So why was I in so much pain in the first place? After noticing Bai Yi's different attitude towards Vivi, Lu Qi seemed to understand something in his heart. Thinking of this, Lu Qi couldn't help but feel a little sad when he looked at Bai Yi. Damn it, Khalifa doesn't live up to expectations. It turns out that Bai Yi Sama likes underage people. So evil. It's a pity that Bai Yi doesn't know what Lu Qi is thinking in his mind now. Otherwise, he would have to cripple Lu Qi, and then exchange hundreds of reagents for him and let him inject one a day. Beat this ungrateful guy to death. You know, what he injected into Lu Qi was a rapid healing potion that cost 5 points of world source power. Belle used a healing potion that cost a little bit of world source power. The function of the treatment potion is only to restore the injury and save the life of the injured person. It will take a long time to recover from the injury. And it cannot remove all hidden diseases in the body. So the pain Lucci endured in the first place was all rewarded. Belle fully understood the situation after listening to Vivi's account of Bai Yi and the others. So he held on to his injuries and walked to Bai Yi, bent down and apologized. "I'm really sorry, I misunderstood you." Bai Yi said calmly, "It doesn't matter, as long as the agreement can be fulfilled." Vivi on the side said firmly, "Don't worry, I will do what I promised." While several people were talking, King Cobra of the Kingdom of Alabasta and Adjutant Yaka of the Kingdom of Alabasta guards. The two led a large number of palace guards to rush out of the city. Along the way, Cobra's expression was filled with joy mixed with a bit of anxiety, and he asked in a hurried tone, "Yaka, do you think Vivi is really back?" The tall man on the side nodded heavily and said, "I heard from the soldiers patrolling outside that Princess Vivi is really back. Belle, who is patrolling outside, has already rushed over first. If we leave the city now, we should just meet him." Hearing this, Cobra's face became a little more happy, and his steps moved faster. Since Vivi secretly left the palace a year ago, she said she was going to find evidence of Crocodile's crime and restore peace to the Alabasta kingdom. Cobra lived in fear every day, fearing that Vivi would fall into the hands of Crocodile and her life would be in danger. In his heart, he felt more self-blame for his own incompetence. Let a girl who is only 14 years old bear such a heavy responsibility. And Vivi lived a life like a little princess in the palace, with fine clothes and fine food. "I don't know how much hardship I will endure outside this time." Just thinking about it made Cobra feel heartbroken. So when I heard that Vivi was back this time, I quickly took people out of the city to check. But just halfway through, he saw a soldier running over in a hurry and said anxiously, "The king is in trouble. Adjutant Belle was injured." After hearing this, Yaka's expression changed drastically. He picked up the soldier and asked angrily, "What did you just say?" The soldier struggled desperately, but couldn't utter a single word. Cobra's face was as dark as water, and he seemed to say calmly, "Yaka, put the soldier down first and let him speak slowly." Yaka let go of his hand and scratched his head angrily. The soldier kept saying, "In addition to Captain Ikaram, there are 3 mysterious people wearing masks who followed Her Royal Highness Princess Vivi back." "Mystery man." The soldier nodded and continued, "Those 3 people probably held Princess Vivi hostage, and then Adjutant Belle attacked them, but they were easily defeated." Yaka asked sharply, "How is Belle?" "This may." I saw the soldier was hesitating and speechless. The two of them felt cold, knowing that Belle was probably in serious danger. And they probably guessed the identities of these 3 mysterious people, who should be from Crocodile. In other words, Vivi was held hostage by Crocodile's people. Now Kozala realized that it might really be over. Perhaps he needs to make a difficult choice between his biological daughter and the kingdom. Cobra and Yaka hurried to the outside of the city gate, and sure enough they saw 3 mysterious men wearing masks and black robes. Looking to the side, Belle was covered in blood and being held up by Ikarim, looking extremely miserable. And Vivi, whom she hadn't seen for a year, was actually stained with a lot of scarlet blood. This made Cobra and Yaka subconsciously clench their fists, and veins popped out on the backs of their hands. Yaka was even more furious at this time and instantly activated his fruit ability. Lush black short hair sprouted from the head, the ears became pointed and elongated and stood upright on the back of the head, the nose protruded forward, and the limbs turned into black claws, just like a human-shaped jackal. He kicked his legs hard on the ground and rushed towards Bai Yi, who was closest to Vivi, with all his strength. "How dare you attack Princess Vivi and Belle, it's really unforgivable." Yaka pulled out a long black knife from his waist and slashed at Bai Yi with all his strength. "Mada, come again." Lucci and Bruno were just about to take action when they were stopped by Bai Yi. The two of them knew that Lord Bai Yi had been angered by the other party's repeated provocations and wanted to take action personally. "I just don't know how many people will die if Lord Bai Yi really takes action." Bai Yi looked coldly at Yaka jumping up in the air, and a murderous intent suddenly burst out from his body. "If Lousy really has no temper, can you take turns to attack me one by one?" I have to kill one of you today so that you can remember it for a long time. If killing one is not enough, I don't mind slaughtering everyone in your Alabasta palace. Bai Yi was full of murderous intent, and Vivi beside her immediately felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar, and her whole body was cold. Vivi suddenly realized that the youngest mysterious boy beside her was the leader among the three of them. Although the young man didn't take any action along the way. But judging from the strength displayed by the other two people, this young man is definitely extremely powerful. Otherwise, he would not have made a deal with himself and promised to kill Crocodile, one of the Shichibukai. As long as the boy really takes action, wouldn't Uncle Yaka be dead? And if they make the other party angry, they probably won't have to wait for the rebels to reach the royal capital. The three people in front of them alone are enough to bring a huge disaster to the kingdom of Alabasta. Thinking of this, Vivi decided that she could not let the situation continue to develop. Vivi suddenly stood in front of Bai Yi with open arms, closed her eyes and shouted loudly. Uncle Yaka and the others are not bad people, but they are here to help us. Yaka's sword was about to hit Bai Yi, and Bai Yi also punched him very seriously. When Cobra saw this, he was as anxious as an ant on a hot pot. He shouted anxiously, Vivi, get out of the way. Belle and Ikaram were eager to rush forward and pull Vivi away. Lucci and Bruno looked at Vivi standing in front of Bai Yi in shock. If this little girl wants to die, she doesn't need to find such a way to die, right? If Mr. Bai Yi really hits him, he will probably turn into powder. Yaka in midair saw Princess Vivi suddenly appearing in front of her. He thought to himself, if his sword fell, he might have cut Princess Vivi in half before hurting the mysterious man. So, Yaka gritted his teeth and abruptly reversed the direction in which the knife fell, leaving a crack several meters long on the ground. Under the mask, Bai Yi looked at Vivi standing in front of him and frowned. If this punch is thrown normally, it can flatten Vivi and Yaka, or even half of Albana. But I remembered the note Vivi handed me in the tavern. Bai Yi couldn't bear it and threw a punch that passed by Vivi's ear and hit the left front, avoiding Albana. Seeing that Vivi was safe and sound, everyone didn't have time to rejoice. Only a loud noise was heard, and a deep crater thousands of meters deep suddenly exploded in the desert in front of him on the left, as if it had been bombarded by countless artillery shells, splashing sand and dust all over the sky. The force of the fierce fist did not diminish, and it cut a deep crack tens of thousands of meters long in the desert. Countless quicksand on both sides surged into the crack, but it was never filled up, as if the crack led straight to hell and an abyss. The fist wind swept out with the yellow sand in the sky, like a long yellow dragon stretching 10,000 meters, flying in the sky, covering the sky and the sun, dyeing half of the sky yellow. Everyone looked at Bai Yi's impact with dull expressions. The power of this punch was beyond their knowledge. At this time, Yaka couldn't even hold the knife in his hand steadily. He looked at the several meter cracks he had created, and then looked at the tens of thousands of meters long abyss created by Bai Yi. The difference between the two is like an earthworm and a giant dragon. And he, an earthworm, actually wanted to dare to attack a real giant dragon. Just thinking about it made him break out in a cold sweat. Cobra looked at Vivi and then at Bai Yi, wondering how his daughter found such a strong man. He felt that the person in front of him was as powerful as the three marine generals, or even stronger than them. Even Lucci and Bruno, who have been following Bai Yi these days. It was also the first time I saw the impact Bai Yi would have if he really took action. Only then did Lucci realize how good Bai Yi was to him. If Lord Bai Yi had put more force into that kick, he might have died long ago. Where can I still be as lively as I am now? Vivi turned around and covered her slightly opened mouth with her hands, her big eyes full of shock. She has seen Bai Yi's true face. He didn't look much older than her. But just like this, the strength of this young man is actually so strong, even terrifyingly strong. Vivi couldn't help but secretly feel happy that she had made the right decision just now. Otherwise, the Alabasta kingdom may really fall in his hands. Looking at Vivi, Bai Yi said calmly, "This is the second time you have taken action against me. I have a rule, do it again and again, not again. If there is a third time, I will let you disappear together with Crocodile." When Vivi heard this, a panicked look appeared on her face, and she quickly patted her small chest and assured her, "Don't worry, as long as I'm here, I guarantee that no one will attack you again in the Alabasta Palace. Vivi hesitated for a moment, then continued, our family has protected Pluton for hundreds of years. Although I promised to use Pluton to trade with you, I still need to discuss this matter with my father. Quote. Because he was afraid that Bai Yi would think that he wanted to break the contract. So, Vivi quickly added, don't worry, I will definitely persuade my father. The agreement between us still works, it just takes a little time. Just when Vivi was worried, Bai Yi said, I'll give you one night and give me an answer tomorrow morning. Vivi glanced at Shiro Yoruichi in surprise. Unexpectedly, this guy was quite easy to talk to. Yesterday, after witnessing Bai Yi's terrifying strength, Cobra quickly arranged the three of them in the best room in the palace for them to rest. The next morning, Bai Yi had just woken up from his sleep when he heard a knock on the door. When I checked the gate of opening, I saw Vivi standing obediently at the door. Wearing an exquisite sky blue dress and waist-length sky blue hair, she perfectly accentuates her figure and looks more like a princess of a country. It looks pleasing to the eye. Unlike when we first met, he was dressed like a refugee. It's hard to imagine that this is a princess from a big country. Vivi saw the white knight of the gate of opening, and a touch of light red appeared on her fragile skin. Then, Vivi asked timidly, I'm here to ask you, do you want to go have breakfast together? No need, letting more people see our appearance is not a good thing for you. Okay, then I'll ask them to deliver breakfast to your room. Vivi pretended to leave, but after taking a few steps, she turned around, tilted her head and asked playfully. By the way, I still don't know what your name is. You can call me Knight. Yi, it doesn't sound like his real name at first glance. It's understandable, after all, they have to wear masks and robes when traveling. For fear of being discovered by others, it was naturally impossible to tell him his real name. Vivi didn't care, but showed a bright smile to Bai Yi. Let's get to know each other again. Hello, my name is Neferutari Vivi. You can call me Vivi. Vivi felt a little frustrated when she saw Bai Yi just nodded and said nothing. So, he was about to turn around and leave, but before he left, he heard Bai Yi suddenly shouting. Just wait a moment. Vivi turned around happily and asked, do you want to say anything else to me? I heard Bai Yi say calmly under the mask, didn't I agree yesterday that you would come and give me an answer this morning? Upon hearing that Bai Yi was asking about this matter, Vivi's mood instantly dropped a bit, but she still smiled and said, I almost forgot if you didn't tell me. I discussed this matter with my father last night and he agreed. Quote. That would be great. The agreement between us will continue. After saying that, Bai Yi returned to the room and closed the door. The historical text recording Pluton's specific location has now been resolved. There is still one person left who can understand the text of history, the son of the devil, Nico Robin. When Vivi saw Bai Yi returning to the room, a trace of sadness flashed in her eyes and she left quietly. On the sand, in a luxury casino, Crocodile has a slicked back hair, a black fur coat, a long transverse scar on his face, an earring in his right ear, and a gold hook in his left hand. He smokes a cigar and listens to the report of his subordinates. You mean all the members of Whiskey Peak are dead? Not all of them are dead, except for the bodies of Mr. 8 Ikaram and Miss Wednesday, Vivi. Hearing this, Crocodile suddenly smashed the table in front of him into two pieces and asked with a gloomy face. Do you know who did it? This is not clear, but those members were all killed by one blow. The person who did it must be very strong. A trace of doubt flashed in Crocodile's eyes, who would come to trouble him at this time. Moreover, Vivi and Ikaram were specially taken away. In fact, when Vivi first joined Baroque Studio, Crocodile already knew that she was the princess of the Alabasta Kingdom. Just out of the mentality of playing with the weak, he wanted her to feel a deeper despair. So she deliberately pretended not to know, making her think that she had successfully sneaked into the Baroque Studio. When Vivi thinks she has enough information, she takes action to cut off her hopes. Unexpectedly, while fishing, the fishing rod was broken. Crocodile pondered for a while. Miss All Sunday, Nicole Robin, send someone to investigate what happened at Whiskey Mountain. A tall woman walked from the side and said with a smile. What's wrong? What happened again? After Crocodile told what happened at Whiskey Peak, Robin smiled and said, "It seems that your plan is going to change unexpectedly again." Crocodile said fiercely, "No one can change my plan. To me, these are just small episodes in the implementation of the plan, and they have no influence on the overall situation." Then, Crocodile looked into Robin's dark green eyes and said seriously, "Although you can understand historical texts, I hope you understand your situation. There are not many places on the sea that can accommodate you. You must not get involved in unnecessary things. Otherwise, I don't mind handing you over to the world government in exchange for a bounty of 80 million belly." Quote. Robin took a deep look at Crocodile, turned around and left without replying. Robin actually didn't want to work for Crocodile. Just because when I was avoiding Marine's pursuit, caught by Crocodile, and he took a fancy to his ability to understand historical texts. That's why he made himself the second in command of the Baroque working group, the nominal vice president. The fact is, as Crocodile said, he can only hide under Crocodile to avoid the pursuit of Marine and world government. Thinking back on what Crocodile just said, I really don't know who these guys are. Could it be that their goal is also Pluton? Inside the Albana Palace, Cobra saw Vivi looking absent-minded while eating breakfast, and asked with concern, "What's wrong, my dear daughter? Is breakfast not to your liking?" Vivi smiled and said, "No, I'm just thinking about something and don't have much appetite." Cobra sighed and said, "You have been away from the palace for too long. It is normal for you to not get used to it for a while. Originally, you just came back, so I should have cared about you and taken care of you. But as your father, I still want to say what I need to say to you. Do you really want to tell them the location of the historical text that contains information about Pluton?" Vivi nodded and said seriously, "This is the only way to eliminate Crocodile and relieve the crisis of national subjugation." Cobra hesitated, but Vivi stood up and walked to Cobra, folded her arms and said coquettishly, "Oh, father, don't worry. I think he is not a bad person and will not use Pluton to do things that endanger the world. He is not the same type of person as Crocodile." Quote. Cobra glanced at his daughter angrily and made no further objections. Thinking about how my daughter spent the whole night last night, she tried her best to persuade her to agree. Cobra, a question suddenly popped up in his mind. Is this little guy really persuading himself just for the sake of the kingdom? As a member of the Baroque Commune working group, Vivi naturally knew that Crocodile's lair was in the sand. They came from Whiskey Peak to the royal capital, Albana. It's just because you need to pass through Albana to reach the sandy area. And Vivi also needs to discuss Pluton with Cobra. After all these matters are resolved, Vivi and Bai Yi were about to set off to the sand to deal with Crocodile. At noon, Bai Yi asked Vivi, "When should we set off?" Vivi said sadly, "If possible, I hope to leave now. After all, every minute of delay will cause many casualties." Quote. Just do as you say. Bai Yi had no objection to this. After all, it has been almost a month since I left the capital of Seven Waters. In addition to Crocodile, Bai Yi also wanted to take advantage of this time to make other plans. Need to pick up the pace. Hearing Bai Yi's answer, Vivi smiled sweetly, looked at Belle aside and asked, "Uncle Belle, how are your injuries?" "Fortunately, I have basically recovered. As long as I don't take action, there will be no serious problem." After saying that, Belle said to Bai Yi gratefully, "It's really thanks to your reagent that my injury healed so quickly." Bai Yi waved his hand and didn't care. Vivi continued, "In that case, Uncle Belle, can you use your fruit power to send us to the sand? This is much faster than riding a camel and can save most of the time." Belle did not agree immediately, but glanced at Bruno with some palpitations. Bai Yi immediately understood what Belle meant and said, "Yesterday his weight was due to the use of his abilities, and now he is the weight of a normal person." After hearing Bai Yi's explanation, Belle breathed a sigh of relief and affirmed, "Okay, let's set off now." After saying that, Belle directly transformed into the appearance of a falcon, which was 3 meters tall, with its wings spread out, which was 5 meters long. "Come up here." Originally Ikaram also wanted to go up, but Vivi asked him to stay. Uncle Belle's injury hasn't fully healed yet. It would be too strenuous for him to bring too many people. And it will also affect the speed. A few of us are enough. Quote. Vivi smiled and said, "Besides, nothing will happen to me as long as they are here." Cobra stood up and said, "You must be careful." Then, he looked at Bai Yi and said, "Mr. Yi, I leave my daughter to you." Bai Yi said calmly, "Don't worry, I always keep my word." Hearing Bai Yi's familiar words, Lucci and Bruno's expressions became strange. God is so true to his word. Fortunately, he was covered by a mask and was not seen by Bai Yi. Otherwise, a beating will definitely be inevitable. The four people stepped on Belle's back, and could only barely settle down. The space was not very large. Because Vivi needed to identify the direction, she stood side by side with Bai Yi in front. Lucci and Bruno stood at the back obediently. As Belle flapped his wings vigorously, the flapping wind picked up the yellow sand, and his body flew directly into the air. Because there was some shaking during takeoff, Vivi couldn't stand firmly for a while and leaned on Bai Yi's body. Feeling Bai Yi's body temperature, Vivi suddenly felt shy and blushed from her ears to the root of her neck. He stood up quickly, not daring to look at Bai Yi. But when flying, it is also easily affected by airflow, so Belle needs to constantly adjust his flying posture. This was nothing to Bai Yi and the three of them. Their feet stood firmly on Belle's back like roots. No matter how Belle flies, it will not affect them. But this is too difficult for the weak Vivi. Just like walking on a horizontal bar, in order to maintain balance, the body keeps shaking from side to side. Take another look at the small city on the ground and the people who are not much bigger than ants. If they fell from here, they would probably be gone. Just when Vivi's face turned pale, she heard Bai Yi say, "If you are really unsteady, you can hold my clothes." As soon as Bai Yi finished speaking, Vivi hugged Bai Yi's arm tightly like a dying person grabbing a life-saving straw, as if she wouldn't let go even if she beat me to death. Well, looking at Vivi's appearance, I was really scared. Bai Yi felt the fragrance lingering on the tip of her nose and the soft touch coming from her arm, but did not withdraw her arm. As the saying goes, don't take advantage of the fool. This is your responsibility, it has nothing to do with me. Lucci and Bruno, standing behind the two of them, silently gave Bai Yi a thumbs up. Lord Bai Yi, you are worthy of being Lord Bai Yi. Wherever you go, wherever you go. Where are these people? This is completely a walking male hormone, okay. So with the admiration of the two of them, Vivi held Bai Yi's arm and flew all the way. Even when they arrived at the destination, the sand, Vivi didn't realize she had to let go. It wasn't until Belle released the fruit's ability and turned into a human body that he discovered that Princess Vivi was hugging Bai Yi's arm tightly. Her expression instantly became dumbfounded. She pointed at Bai Yi's arm and stuttered. "This, could it be? You." Vivi looked at Belle, who was so shocked that he couldn't even speak, and then she realized and quickly let go. Vivi blushed and explained awkwardly, "Uncle Belle, don't think too much. I just can't stand firmly on your back because I'm afraid of falling. So I just borrowed Yi's arm to stay stable." Quote. Listening to Vivi's explanation, Belle became even more unconvinced. "Good guy, I'm not blind yet. You said you couldn't stand firmly on my back, so you held his arm. But when I landed just now, you were still holding me, and your face was even red like this. A fool can see something is wrong. Is the kingdom about to change?" Just as a few people landed, a few white arms suddenly emerged from a secret place in the desert nearby. The palm is open, and there is a dark green eye in the palm, staring at Bai Yi and the others. Bai Yi instantly noticed the feeling of being spied on. Under the domineering perception of seeing and hearing, Bai Yi soon discovered the 5 arms hiding in secret places and the 5 eyes in the palms. Bai Yi looked at the eyes in the palm of his hand with a half smile, and there was a hint of excitement in his expression under the mask. Unexpectedly, as soon as I arrived, I met one of my targets, Nico Robin. You must not let it go. If you stop trying to catch him, it will be much more troublesome. While thinking, 5 tiny armed domineering energy burst out from Bai Yi's body, directly smashing his eyes and arms into pieces. Robin, who was hiding not far from the city, suddenly opened his eyes with pain in his eyes, and tears fell from the corners of his eyes. Robin's delicate face showed disbelief as he said, "He was able to discover me. Who is he?" "Lord Bai, just now," Lu Qi asked doubtfully. Although Lu Qi didn't notice Robin's prying eyes, Bai Yi just made a direct move without hiding it, which made Lu Qi feel it. Bai Yi chuckled and said, "We have been discovered by them. It won't be long before they all come out." Vivi asked nervously, "Why don't we hide first? They are very powerful." "No, just wait for them here. If they all came out, I would save the energy to look for them one by one." Quote. Listening to Bai Yi's confident words, Vivi's uneasy mood gradually eased a lot. Thinking about it, with Bai Yi's strength, there is no need to hide here and there. It would be easier to just push all the way. Although Robin in the sand didn't know why the man with the black mask was there. But she recognized Vivi and Belle beside Bai Yi. One is the princess of the Alabasta Kingdom, and the other is the adjutant of the escort team. He is almost considered the top person in the kingdom. It is probably guessed that these people should come to Crocodile to seek revenge. So I quickly went to the casino to look for Crocodile. Seeing Robin hurriedly pushing the door in, Crocodile hesitated and said, "Did you find the clues about that group so quickly?" "Try to find. What a nonsense. People just knocked on the door." Robin looked panicked and said, "No need to look for it. If you guessed correctly, the murderer who killed the members of Whiskey Peak should be at the gate of the sandy area now." Quote. What? Crocodile almost jumped out of his chair. "Good guy, how dare you be so arrogant? Hit me directly at the door of Shichibukai's house. I think lousy is easy to bully, right?" Although Crocodile is very angry now, as a hero, he has not lost his mind. Since the other party dares to take the initiative to knock on the door, it means that the other party is fully prepared. Or the other party is quite confident in his own strength, so that's why he behaves like this. In addition, the identity of the other party has not been determined, and the intention is not clear. This made Crocodile, who originally wanted to take action directly, change his mind and said to Robin, "Go and gather all the members in the sand, and notify all the cadres outside to come back." Yes, Robin quickly dialed the phone number to contact the cadres outside, and notified the members of the sand lot to gather at the entrance of the casino. And just when the interior of the sand was in chaos, Bai Yi actually took out a huge Bai Yi tent from the system space and set it up outside the city. The tent not only has comfortable lounge chairs and soft bedding, but also a variety of rare fruits in the desert. These are usually stored in the system space by Bai Yi. After all, the things placed in the space will not be affected by time, and there is no need to worry about food damage. Anyway, I'm just bored right now, and I don't know how long it will take Crocodile to gather people together. Instead of waiting foolishly, it is better to live a more comfortable life. Vivi and others looked at Bai Yi as if he was performing magic, taking out so many things in one breath. Bruno murmured, "Master Yi, is your fruit ability of the space system?" Bai Yi said unabashedly, "That's right, but it's of no use. It can only be used to store things. You all sit down and eat, don't be stupid. When you set up a tent and eat fruits in front of the enemy's house, are you here to kill people or are you here for a spring outing?" Although Belle recognized Bai Yi's strength, he was always worried. After all, Crocodile is not an easy character to deal with. "Well, I'd better patrol outside to guard against the insidious guy Crocodile." Bai Yi didn't stop him. In fact, it was easier for him to eat when Belle left. You know, Belle has never seen his true face. Lucci and Bruno on the side also felt that it was a bit outrageous to station themselves in front of the enemy's house. Apply to guard the door with Belle to prevent Crocodile from escaping. Facing the three people leaving, Bai Yi spat lightly, "Oh, you don't know how to enjoy life." Bai Yi and Vivi were the only two people left in the tent, and the atmosphere gradually became ambiguous. Bai Yi picked up a fruit similar to an apple and handed it to Vivi. "I bought this from the Sabayati Islands. I don't know what it's called, but it tastes pretty good. You can try it." "Thank you." When Vivi took the fruit, her fingers inadvertently touched Bai Yi's, and her face turned red. For a time, I even thought about the name of the child. Bai Yi didn't know that Vivi, a little girl, was young and had many ideas. He took the fruit and ate it without thinking about himself. At this moment, Crocodile was sitting upright on his seat, holding a cigar in his mouth, and kept asking, "When will they be able to come back?" Fortunately, they didn't go far. They should be able to come back basically tomorrow. Hearing that his men would be back tomorrow, Crocodile immediately felt relieved. Everyone else in Sandy gathered at the entrance of the casino. As soon as their subordinates came back, they all went out and killed these guys at the entrance. Thinking of this, Crocodile then asked, by the way, aren't there any movement from those at the door? Just let us gather our forces like this. The person being questioned looked at Crocodile awkwardly and said. They set up a tent at the door, and it seemed like they were holding a banquet inside. Having a party. Everyone in Crocodile is stupid. What the hell kind of trick is this? Instead of stopping him from gathering men, they launched an attack while he was at his weakest. Instead, they set up a tent at the door and started the banquet. Just let him gather his men who were scattered everywhere. Is there anything wrong with the other person's mind? There are only two answers to this matter. Either the other person is a fool. Either the other party did it deliberately. Wait for Crocodile to summon all his men back and then eliminate them one by one. Although Crocodile believed that his own strength should be invincible in the first half of the grand route. But the other party's actions really made him feel very uneasy. Crocodile fell into deep thought. Maybe he should make other preparations. The next day, Bai Yi suddenly woke up from his sleep, opened his eyes, and said with lingering fear. It scared me to death. I actually dreamed that a woman wanted to rape me. This is outrageous. There must be too many women who are lusting after my body recently, which makes even a strong man like me break out in a cold sweat. Think about it. During this period, Dasky, Ain, Khalifa, and Vivi were all surrounding him. It's hard not to dream. When Bai Yi was sighing, a snow-white, slender jade leg was directly straddling his lower abdomen, and lotus-like jade arms were wrapped around Bai Yi's neck. Shiro Yoruichi turned his head and saw that Vivi was about to ride on him. He was shocked and said, damn it, it turns out this is not a dream. When Bai Yi packed up his clothes and came out of the tent, he saw Belle being stopped by Lucci and Bruno not far from the door. It looked like both sides were about to fight. At this time, Belle's face was filled with anger. If his eyes could burst into flames, he would probably be able to vaporize Bai Yi on the spot. Bai Yi asked in confusion, what are you doing? When Belle saw Bai Yi coming out, he angrily said, where is Princess Vivi? What will you do to Princess Vivi? Don't think that just because you are strong, you can insult our princess at will. Even without you, we can still drive Crocodile out of the Alabasta Kingdom. If it weren't for the fact that his injuries hadn't healed and he couldn't take the initiative, Belle would have already entered the tent. Even if he knew that he was no match for Bai Yi and the others, he would not watch Vivi being humiliated. Lucci and Bruno were guarding the door conscientiously. When Belle wanted to rush in, he intercepted him abruptly and refused to let him in. This made Belle, who was already worried about Vivi, feel that Bai Yi must have given Vivi too. That's why I'm so angry. Only then did Bai Yi understand what was going on. Good guy, Lousy was almost raped by Vivi last night, but you still have the nerve to rely on me. If Lousy hadn't seen that Vivi was only 16 years old, he had been silently reciting the 24-character mantra in his heart. He forcibly resisted the idea of executing Vivi on the spot. Otherwise, you will call me Prince Consort now when you see me. Listening to the noise outside, Vivi was blushing so hard that she was bleeding. Recalling the scene of Bai Yi riding under her when she was awake, Vivi wanted to find a crack in the ground and crawl out. In order to avoid further escalation of the situation, Vivi could only walk out with a red face. When Belle saw Vivi coming out, he first breathed a sigh of relief, and then asked nervously. Vivi, last night. Vivi lowered her head and said in a very small voice, Uncle Belle, there was nothing wrong last night. Is everything okay? If nothing happened, why did these two guys stop me from entering? Belle looked at Bai Yi and the others suspiciously, but since Vivi said it was fine, nothing really happened. President, everyone from the Baroque working group is basically here. A tall, muscular man walked up to Crocodile and said. The person who spoke was the top thug in the Baroque studio. Paramesha, the user with the ability to cut the fruit, Mr. 1, Das Bonus. One thing to say, this fruit is actually quite powerful. If he is eaten by a swordsman with swordsmanship qualifications, there will probably be another great swordsman in the sea. Unfortunately, Das Bonus is not talented in swordsmanship. It's a waste of time to chop off the fruit. Crocodile was wearing a cape, holding a cigar in his mouth, and with a slicked back hair, standing on the roof of the casino, looking like a mafia leader. Looking out of the city from this position, one can even vaguely see the tent set up by Bai Yi. Crocodile murmured, "You really don't take me seriously at all." Then, he turned around and asked, "Can you confirm the identities of those guys?" Luo Bing appeared from behind Crocodile, shook his head and said, "The other party is wearing a black robe and a mask. He should be from the same organization. But on the sea, I have never heard of an organization dressed like this appearing before. Can't you even confirm the other party's identity?" Crocodile became increasingly uneasy, a feeling he had never felt before. However, recalling the backup plan I had left, my impatience eased a bit. Crocodile looked at the 344 members of the Baroque studio below. This is the strong man he has been looking for from everywhere since he became Shichibukai. There are many people with fruit abilities among them. Although their bounties may not be very high, this does not prove that they are weak. Because since they chose to join Crocodile, they were equivalent to becoming members of the world government. Therefore, their bounty will naturally not increase any more. These 344 people were almost all of Crocodile's family. Crocodile looked at the people in front of him and said in a deep voice, "It's time to let them know that offending Baroque Studio will cost them their lives." Listening to Crocodile's words, the 344 people let out roars that resounded across the sand. Even in the white night outside the city, they could hear it clearly. Bai Yi smiled and said, "Hey, the other party finally gathered everyone together. I just don't know which ones are coming to die. I hope people can come more often and not make me wait in vain for a whole day." The residents of the Sandy Land were extremely surprised when they saw Crocodile heading out of the city with so many men. Who is he worthy of? Crocodile, one of the great pirates of the Shichibukai, gathers all his men to go to war. Some people who were not afraid of death secretly followed the team to see what was going on. The closed city gate opened, and the Baroque studio headed by Crocodile appeared in front of Bai Yi and others. "Hey, we're going to have a good harvest again this time." Bai Yi looked at those faces that were blurred in memory. Although I didn't recognize their identities, I can confirm that they are all characters who have appeared in the anime. Under the mask, Byakuya grinned to the base of his ears. This day is really not in vain. Crocodile first looked at Vivi and Belle and recognized their identities. "Miss Wednesday, you said you ran away from the Baroque studio. Wouldn't it be better to just wait for death in the palace? Do you have to take the initiative to come to your door to seek death?" Crocodile said in a bad tone. Vivi stared at Crocodile with hatred and said coldly, "You should be the one who wants to die, right? I came here today just to kill you. Avenge the dead citizens." I have to say that Vivi was very courageous to say such words when facing Crocodile. If she hadn't grabbed Bai Yi's arm tightly, her words would have been more powerful. A trace of contempt flashed in Crocodile's eyes, and he chuckled, "Why do you still want to kill me? If I stand here and let you kill me for the rest of your life, you will never be able to kill me. If I hadn't wanted to tease you before and see how far you could go. As early as when you joined Baroque Studio, you were killed by me. Now, you are still brazenly talking about killing me in front of me. It is really naive." Quote. Then, Crocodile looked at Bai Yi who was caught by Vivi, and said coldly, "Don't you know that on the sea, nosy people usually die early?" Crocodile did not feel any threatening aura from Bai Yi, as if he was just like an ordinary person on the street, and could not see anything unusual. But this situation is precisely the most terrifying for Crocodile. This can only show that the other party is extremely powerful. Faced with Crocodile's murderous words, Bai Yi said calmly, "Are you threatening me?" Crocodile said with undiminished murderous intent, "I'm just telling you the rules you should abide by on the sea. Although I don't know what kind of organization you are, you chose me as your enemy. Absolutely a stupid decision." Quote. Bai Yi originally wanted to kill Crocodile directly, but recalling the original plan, Bai Yi felt that he should do something more. "Oh, I'm quite curious, what qualifications do you, Crocodile, have to say such a thing?" A breeze blew by, picking up some fine gravel and appearing in the middle of the two sides. Bai Yi's right foot suddenly exerted force and kicked the gravel in the stroke with great force. For a moment, the gravel kicked by Bai Yi was like cannonballs being fired. They flew densely towards Crocodile and the others. "Damn it!" Crocodile's expression suddenly changed, and without any hesitation, he directly used the fruit ability to elementalize. The whole body also turned into gravel and appeared on the other side, condensing into a human body with a solemn expression. Crocodile can rely on the fruit's ability to escape, but his subordinates do not have such ability. Being penetrated by a grain of sand in the body only caused a little pain, but it passed after being endured. As long as the vital points are not penetrated, nothing big will happen. But if thousands of gravels penetrate the body can directly become a sieve. Moreover, the flying gravel is not only the ones kicked. There are also some gravels that are carried by this strong wind. The power is weaker, but the quantity is larger. When Crocodile left in a flash, several cadres working in Baroque behind him were unable to react in time. Before they could take action, 3 people were directly penetrated by the gravel and died. There were small wounds all over their bodies and they began to leak blood. The death was extremely horrific. Das Bonus was only attacked by a small amount of weak sand and gravel, and his whole body transformed into a blade as hard as iron. The gravel hit his body, making a crisp collision sound. He lost power and fell down, but it failed to penetrate his body and only knocked him back a few steps. This caught Bai Yi's attention. Bai Yi turned sideways and said to Lu Qi, "Did you see that? The guy who can turn his whole body into a steel sword will be left to you later." Lu Qi nodded, and then kept his eyes on Das Bonus. Bai Yi has been teaching Lu Qi how to use armament hockey during this period of time. And with Lu Qi's own qualifications and excellent physical foundation, he quickly felt the existence of armed domineering. Now he is basically just one step away from breaking through the skin and covering his body with his armed domineering energy. Maybe now is the opportunity for a breakthrough. Crocodile looked at Bai Yi with a flash of fear in his eyes, although he could easily kill the 3 dead cadres. But there is still a long way to go to achieve Bai Yi's level of randomness. This was the second time in Crocodile's life that he had the idea of being invincible. As for the first time, it was when he first entered the New World and challenged the strongest man in the world, Whitebeard. As a result, he was severely injured by Whitebeard's full punch, and he could only escape in embarrassment and leave the New World. At that time, he secretly swore that one day in the future, he would definitely return to the New World again. Get rid of Whitebeard with your own hands. To this end he joined the world government's newly formed 7 warlords of the sea and formed Baroque Studio. And after learning the news about the existence of ancient weapon Pluton in the kingdom of Alabasta, started planning all this. But I didn't expect this mysterious man who came from nowhere in front of me. It can actually bring him as much fear as Whitebeard did back then. He definitely has the strength to kill himself. No, I can't let all these years of hard work go to waste. At this time, Crocodile had a crazy idea in his mind, and he said softly, "I'm a little curious, what benefits does the kingdom of Alabas give you? To be able to find a strong person like you to deal with me." "Sorry, this is an organizational secret and I can't tell you." Crocodile's expression changed and he said hurriedly, "No matter what benefits they give you, I am willing to give you 3 times as long as your organization does not interfere in this matter." Quote. As soon as these words came out, Vivi and Belle's expressions changed drastically. Who would have thought that Crocodile, who had always been strong, would actually relent in front of Bai Yi? Vivi bit her lip lightly and thought, the agreement she made with Yizuo was in exchange for Pluton. But if Crocodile is also willing to use Pluton as a condition, as long as Yi doesn't interfere, it is estimated that within a year, Crocodile will also be able to find Pluton's whereabouts. But by that time, the Alabasta kingdom will become a hell on earth. Thinking of this, Vivi's little face turned a little pale, and she pulled Bai Yi's sleeves with some fear. Like a cub about to be abandoned by its owner, it looks pitiful. Bai Yi continued, "If you are willing to tell me your plan and are willing to pay 1 billion belly and 5 random devil fruits, our organization may consider withdrawing from this operation." Quote. Hearing Bai Yi's words, Vivi's face instantly turned pale, her whole body seemed to have lost strength, and she couldn't even stand steady. She had no idea that Yi would break their agreement. Belle on the side also had dull eyes and a dull look on his face, and kept saying, "It's over, it's all over." As someone who has seen Bai Yi's strength, he naturally knows that only Bai Yi can solve Crocodile. If Bai Yi is persuaded by Crocodile and doesn't choose to take action. Even worse, if Bai Yi and Crocodile join forces. Then the kingdom of Alabasta doesn't even have the slightest hope. Hearing Bai Yi's extremely exaggerated conditions, even Crocodile couldn't help but change his color. 1 billion belly plus 5 devil fruits of any choice. Each of the 5 devil fruits costs at least 500 million belly, and they are all very expensive. Most of the money that Crocodile has accumulated over the years has been used to develop the Baroque studio. There were probably less than 800 million baileys left, and most of the devil fruits obtained were eaten by his subordinates. There is no way to satisfy the mysterious man's request. However, after thinking of Bai Yi's terrifying strength, Crocodile agreed to Bai Yi's request. By then, as long as Pluton is obtained, Whitebeard and the guy in front of him will be nothing more than ants. Crocodile thought for a moment and said, I can agree to your request, but I can't take out these things right now. Give me a month, and then you can just come to Albana to pick it up. Quote. From Crocodile's words, we can tell that he is sure that within a month, completely capture the Alabasta kingdom. Bai Yi asked, you don't show anything now, and you just want me to withdraw. Isn't this a bit inappropriate? Crocodile did not intend to deceive the mysterious man, because before he found Pluton, he did not have the capital to confront the mysterious man head-on. However, what the mysterious man said makes sense. It is indeed unrealistic to let the other party withdraw without showing anything. Crocodile said without any hesitation, I can pay you 800 million belly in advance, and you can pick up the rest when the time comes. Afterwards, Das Bonus quickly returned to the casino to retrieve 800 million belly and placed it in front of Bai Yi. Bai Yi put it into the system space without even looking at it, and then continued, very good, as long as you can tell what you did in Alabasta. We will withdraw immediately and will not interfere in anything related to you again. Quote. As Bai Yi's words fell, Vivi on the side was filled with despair. 2 lines of tears ran down her face. Her legs went weak and she could no longer stand. But just when Vivi was about to fall, Bai Yi reached out to hold her up and prevented Vivi from falling. Just when Vivi was confused, she suddenly felt a note being stuffed in her hand. Vivi turned sideways and secretly opened the note to see that there were only 3 words written on it. Believe me. After putting the paper away, Vivi looked at Bai Yi with confusion in her eyes. What on earth is going on? But Vivi recalled what Bai Yi did after meeting Bai Yi. At this moment, she chose to believe Bai Yi and snuggled beside Bai Yi without saying a word. Just like when she made the agreement with Bai Yi, because this is her only choice. When Crocodile saw this scene, he didn't think too much. After all, Vivi is indeed extremely beautiful, and she is also a princess of a great country. It is not incomprehensible that a strong man like the mysterious man is tempted by him. At worst, he just doesn't kill her after seizing the Alabasta kingdom. In order to make the mysterious man retreat, Crocodile tells the story directly of what he did in Alabasta. However, according to his intention, he did all this to become the king of Alabasta. There is no mention of Pluton. But this is enough for Bai Yi. When Crocodile finished speaking, just when he was about to ask Bai Yi to leave, but Bai Yi suddenly took out an image phone bug from his sleeve. It seems that all the words just said were recorded by the mysterious person. Crocodile was shocked and angry and said, what do you mean? He knew that if this video was circulated, I am afraid that my identity as Shichibukai will be taken away directly. But he saw the mysterious man pointing the phone bug at him and said calmly, is this what's called 7 warlords of the sea? Marine can actually be called the 3 major forces together with 7 warlords of the sea. It seems that Marine is also extremely bad. Today, the Night organization will take care of Crocodile. Let Alabasta return to its original peace. Quote. After saying that, Bai Yi turned off the phone and took it back into his arms. At this point, Crocodile could still not understand that he had been tricked by the mysterious man. He immediately ordered, do it. Although Bai Yi's previous actions calmed many people. But due to Crocodile's majesty over the years, this group of people still launched a death attack on Bai Yi and the 3 of them. Bai Yi handed Vivi to Belle, take Vivi to the sky and try to stay as far away from here as possible. Belle nodded heavily, immediately transformed into a falcon, and let Vivi sit on him. Vivi looked at Bai Yi and said reluctantly, you must be careful. Bai Yi wiped away the remaining tears on Vivi's face and said with a smile, don't worry, it's just Crocodile, he can't change the world. As soon as he finished speaking, a huge fist made of gravel suddenly attacked behind Bai Yi. Lousy as a Shichibukai after all. Are you looking down on people too much? Crocodile's roar sounded behind Bai Yi. Without looking back, Bai Yi opened one hand backwards, and the light red-armed domineering energy spurted out, forming an arc-shaped protective shield. After the sand fist hit the protective shield, it collapsed directly without shaking it at all. What a strong, armed and domineering force, Crocodile said in shock. After Belle drove Vivi away, Bai Yi turned around and said calmly, you have to admit that you are trash, because you are indeed trash in front of me. You, Crocodile was about to speak. Then he saw the White Knight in the distance suddenly appearing in front of him. A huge fist keeps expanding in the eyes. The speed was so fast that Crocodile didn't even have time to react. A strong sense of crisis enveloped Crocodile's heart. It's over, I want to die. This is the remaining thought in Crocodile's mind. White Yoruichi punched Crocodile's head directly, and countless gravel shot out. But after a few seconds, the gravel on the ground reorganized into the shape of a head and returned to Crocodile's body. I'm not dead, Crocodile said in disbelief. Of course you're not dead, Bai Yi said calmly, because I didn't use my armed domineering force at all just now. What do you mean? Isn't this guy ready to kill me? Before Crocodile could think about it, the next moment, his body was once again exploded into a sky full of yellow sand. After blowing it up, Bai Yi stopped, letting Crocodile still condense his body. When the body had just condensed into shape, Bai Yi punched it to pieces again. At this time, Crocodile finally understood what the mysterious man wanted to do. Although this guy didn't use his armed hockey and couldn't cause substantial damage to himself. But for Crocodile, the pain he felt every time he was beaten was real. Resurrecting again and again is equivalent to experiencing death again and again. This is infinite mental torture for Crocodile, and the pain it brings becomes even clearer. After being beaten so many times, Crocodile's speed of condensing his body slowed down several times, and his consciousness became trance-like. This time, before Bai Yi takes action, Crocodile said painfully, how much hatred is there between us to make you keep torturing me? Bai Yi said coldly, that's because you don't know how many storms I suffered along the way in order to kill you. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Can you blame me for the hardships you endured on the road in order to kill me? Just when Crocodile was confused, he was once again exploded into a ball of loose sand. Okay, Lousy is convinced. Crocodile is also a ruthless person and does not use the fruit ability directly. Let the White Yoruichi punch kill him. Bai Yi looked at the blood mist in front of him and was stunned for a moment. Hey, why is this guy dead? The battle between Bai Yi and Crocodile has always attracted the attention of everyone present. Because as long as there is a winner in the battle between the two of them, then it will represent the outcome of the entire battle. Of course, Lucci and Bruno naturally believed that Bai Yi would win the battle. But when they saw Crocodile, one of the Shichibukai, in the hands of that mysterious man, he had no power to fight back and was ravaged at will. Even being pushed to the point of suicide, he chose to give up using the fruit's ability. Let the other party kill you. In the eyes of the members of the Baroque Working Society, this scene was like a bolt from the blue. Is there any need to continue fighting? Even the president is not the enemy of the other party, so he still beats the hell out of him. For a time, most of the members of the peripheral work clubs began to flee like birds and animals. I was afraid that if I ran too slowly, I would be spotted by a mysterious person. Bai Yi looked at the fleeing figures and laughed contemptuously. Want to run? If I really let you run away, wouldn't my whole day's waiting be in vain? The White Knight suddenly turned into afterimages. Everyone who fled seemed to see Bai Yi appearing in front of him at the same time. They didn't have time to scream in front of Bai Yi. A domineering energy like a cherry blossom penetrated his head and killed him on the spot. During this period of time, Bai Yi was surprised to find that, like solving these miscellaneous fish, the finger gun plus Liu Ying are surprisingly useful. In the face of Bai Yi's almost ghostly speed, those who escaped fell in pieces like harvested wheat. In a few breaths, only Daz Bones, who was fighting with Lucci, was left in the Baroque studio. And several other senior cadres who struggled with Bruno. Hey, where's Robin? Bai Yi looked around, and there seemed to be no Robin among the people who had just taken action. Robin has been hiding in Tibet over the years in order to avoid being pursued by the world government. He has mastered the techniques of hiding and escaping. As early as when I saw that Crocodile was not Bai Yi's enemy. Just found a way out. While Shiro Yoruichi defeated Crocodile again and again. Robin then passed through the secret passage outside the city that only he knew. Returned to the casino in the sand. When Robin walked out of the secret passage, he could no longer hear any sounds from outside. This made Robin breathe a sigh of relief. That mysterious man is really terrifying. Even Crocodile was forced by him to choose suicide. The battle between the two was basically a one-sided battle. If he is targeted by a mysterious person, he may only die. However, he did not take action in the battle just now. It shouldn't attract the mysterious man's attention. While the mysterious man is still solving other people in Baroque studio. Get out of the sand quickly. Robin quickly made up his mind. In fact, Robin didn't have any bad feelings towards the mysterious man. If he really wanted to calculate it, Robin would probably have to thank Bai Yi. Because she was forced by Crocodile to join Baroque studio. Moreover, she knew that Crocodile's purpose was Pluton. But she didn't want a terrifying ancient weapon like Pluton to fall into the hands of an ambitious person like Crocodile. Therefore, Bai Yi's action actually gave her a chance to escape Crocodile's control. However, I am afraid that in the rest of my life, I will start running away again. Robin couldn't help but reveal a self-deprecating smile, but quickly put away his depressed mood. Go back to your room and pack your daily belongings. But as soon as he walked out of the casino gate, Robin was stunned on the spot. There was unspeakable horror in his eyes. The mysterious man who easily solved Crocodile appeared at the entrance of the casino. Looks like he already knew you would be here. Although he knew he was outmatched, Robin was unwilling to surrender. He crossed his hands in front of him and scolded, "Six-wheeled flower, anchor flower. This is the strongest strength she can currently exert." I saw 6 flawless white arms strangely growing out of Bai Yi's body. He grabbed Bai Yi's neck, arms, and feet respectively, and bent them back hard, trying to break his jawbone. Tisk, tisk, it seems that Robin is still a bit conservative now and will not directly attack men's vital points. All 6 arms worked together to break Bai Yi's limbs. It's a pity that Robin suppressed his face until his face turned red and his arms couldn't shake Bai Yi for half a minute. Bai Yi said calmly, "Your strength is too weak. You are not even qualified for massage." After saying this, his body shook and his 6 arms were instantly broken. Seeing that Robin still wanted to continue. "Don't waste your efforts, I won't kill you now. If I really wanted to kill you, do you think you could still stand here?" Hearing this, Robin put down his hands, showed a wry smile, and laughed at himself. "Is this the sorrow of the weak?" Bai Yi said unceremoniously, "A weakling like you at least has a certain value. It allows you to survive in a chaotic sea. Quote, and most of the weak don't even have the right to survive." When Robin heard this, he knew why the mysterious man didn't take action immediately after finding him. The reason is that I can understand the historical text. This is the reason why the world government issued a reward order and dispatched a special agent organization to pursue her. Likewise, this is also the reason why she can live till now. Let's go. By now, the battle over there should be over. Bai Yi turned around and walked towards the outside of the city, while Robin looked at Bai Yi's back and hesitated for a moment. Still he followed quickly. Between life and death, she made a choice that ordinary people would make. When Bai Yi came out, he happened to see Lu Qi's hands covered with dark-armed domineering force. One strike of the 6 Kings charge directly broke the steel blade used by Das Bonus for defense. Das Bonus was knocked tens of meters away, collapsed on the ground, spit out a few mouthfuls of blood, and died. After dealing with Das Bonus, Lu Qi did not rest, but rushed to Bruno's side. Help Bruno get rid of the remaining cadres. With Lu Qi's strength, coupled with the newly realized armament domination, to deal with these cadres. It's as easy as chopping melons and vegetables. The two of them joined forces and quickly eliminated all these cadres. In other words, in addition to Robin, Bucklow Studio and Crocodile. In one day, it was completely destroyed. Robin looked at the corpses lying around with a solemn expression. although she has no good impression of these people. But everyone had been working together in the Baroque studio for many years. Now she is the only one left alive. Moreover, we still don't know when the other party will feel that we have lost the value of our use and will get rid of him. Calculated this way, I am actually not much better than them. At most, he will die later. Belle and Vivi, who have been hovering in the sky. After seeing the end of the battle below, he fell down. However, the two of them now feel like they are in a dream. Crocodile, who tortured the kingdom of Alabasta for several years. He was actually beaten to death by Bai Yi so easily. When Belle saw Bai Yi, he almost knelt down in front of Bai Yi. Belle said emotionally, "Thank you so much. You have saved hundreds of millions of citizens and are a great benefactor to the kingdom of Alabasta." At this time, Belle suddenly thought, if Princess Vivi is willing. It is not a bad thing that such a strong man can become the husband of Princess Vivi. From now on, who will dare to come to the Alabasta kingdom to cause trouble? And he was not blind along the way. It can be seen that Princess Vivi really has a crush on Yi. Vivi on the side was also very excited, and her worries were mostly relieved. However, it is not yet time to truly rest assured. Although the chief culprit was killed, the hundreds of thousands of rebels who were bewitched by Crocodile didn't know this news. Vivi walked up to Bai Yi and didn't say a word. Suddenly he saw Robin following Bai Yi. As a former member of the Baroque Working Society, Vivi naturally recognized Robin's identity as the vice president of Baroque Works. Crocodile's right-hand man. Vivi didn't expect that Bai Yi would actually let her stay. Seeing Robin's appearance no less than his own. And that kind of mature temperament that exudes from the inside out. Vivi suddenly became curious about the real reason why Bai Yi left Robin behind. However, Vivi is not a brainless woman. He didn't ask too much about why Bai Yi left Robin behind. He just subconsciously hugged Bai Yi's arm, as if swearing sovereignty to Robin. When Robin saw this situation, he just smiled and didn't care. Not to mention that she really has nothing to do with Bai Yi. Bai Yi kept her here just because she could understand the text of history. Moreover, for Robin, Vivi's behavior like that of a little girl. Instead, it made her feel cute. At this moment, Robin seemed to remember something and suddenly reminded. Last night, Crocodile seemed to have contacted Kosha and asked him to launch a general attack on Albana as soon as possible. If we estimate according to the time, Kosha should have led the rebels to besiege Albana. Quote. Hearing this, Vivi and Belle's expressions suddenly changed. If this is really the case, then the significance of Crocodile killing or not is not that big. Bai Yi asked curiously, "Who is this Kosha? Why haven't I heard of this name?" Vivi explained with a bitter look, "Kosha was my childhood playmate, and now he is the leader of the rebels." The leader of the rebels. Bai Yi reacted instantly. Unexpectedly, Crocodile actually played such a dirty trick before he died. According to Crocodile's idea, even if he really died at the hands of the mysterious man brought by Vivi, by that time, the rebels had probably successfully captured the capital, Albana. The high-ranking royalist faction headed by Cobra should all die at the hands of the rebels led by Kosha. At that time, even if Vivi rushes to Albana with the truth, there is no way to save it. Vivi was unable to stop the fighting between the royalists and the rebels. Because by that time both sides have already lost their sights. Even if Kosha has realized that what he did was wrong. Even if Cobra is killed, there is no way to obtain forgiveness from other members of the royalist faction. Both sides are bound to fight to the death. The kingdom of Alabasta was completely divided. It has to be said that Crocodile lives up to his reputation as a hero. Even if he died, he would still cause so many things. Bai Yi asked, "Is it too late to rush back now?" Robin shook his head and said, "The war should have already started at this point. Even if they rush back, they don't know how many people have died in this war that should not have happened." Quote. Vivi said firmly, "No, I have to rush over to stop this war." Belle also immediately transformed into a falcon form. He also did not want this war to happen. Moreover, his family, brothers and the king to whom he was loyal were all in Albana. He didn't want to be left alone, spending his life in regret like a deserter. Just when Vivi stepped on Belle's back, Bai Yi also followed and whispered, Isn't it part of our previous agreement to help you solve the rebellion? Although Vivi is very worried about Albana's situation at the moment. But after hearing Bai Yi's words, I couldn't help but feel sweet in my heart. She snuggled up to Bai Yi very intimately. Now, only Bai Yi can bring her an unprecedented sense of security. In order to get to Albana as soon as possible, Luki and Bruno did not set off with Bai Yoruichi. Instead, according to Bai Yi's instructions, he was responsible for taking Robin to Albana by land. Albana. There were more than 500,000 rebels outside the city wall, tightly surrounding Albana. Cobra looked anxiously at the dark crowd of rebels outside the city. As anxious as an ant on a hot pot. Cobra never thought of it. On the second day after Vivi and Yi went to the sand, a large number of rebels decisively launched an attack on Albana. Some surrounding cities were occupied by the rebels without even being able to transmit information. At this time, Yaka walked to Cobra with a solemn expression and said in a deep voice, "King, why don't you evacuate first?" Cobra said sternly, "Evacuate? This is the royal capital of Alabasta. As the king, where else can I retreat to? Yaka, tell me honestly what is going on now." Yaka didn't want to say it, but looking at Cobra's determined expression, he could only sigh and said, "There are nearly 550,000 rebels on the opposite side, while the defenders in Albana only have more than 20,000 people. The headcount ratio is close to 22.5:1. Even though the rebels have no weapons and armor, we have the convenience of weapons and city walls." In the face of this terrifying numerical difference, there was no way to defend Albana. Quote, "But if we rely on the 20,000 well-equipped defenders, choose a weakly defended location." He was still able to protect Cobra and charge out. That's why Yaka persuaded Cobra to evacuate Albana at the very beginning. Cobra looked at Jakar's hesitant expression, shook his head and said, "I am the king of the Alabasta kingdom. I will not run away and give up Albasta." But, Cobra looked in the direction of the sand and sighed. "Even if I really die, as long as Vivi is still alive, the Alabasta kingdom can still continue." Chapter 91. A boy of 17 or 18 years old walked out from among the rebels, riding a camel and holding a scimitar, and shouted to Kebra on the city wall, "Cobra, because you used dancing powder, there was no rainfall in other cities in the kingdom of Alabasta except the capital Albana. The land is dry, farmers have basically lost their harvest in the past 2 years, and countless refugees have died in the famine. Now that you are surrounded by our rebel army, it is all your own fault as the king." Quote. Seeing King Cobra being scolded by a young boy in front of more than 500,000 people, Yaka couldn't bear it anymore and yelled at the rebels, "What do you know, you little brat? If Crocodile used some random means, I would believe that it was King Cobra who did it. Use your brain and think about it. Before Crocodile came to the Alabasta kingdom, has anything like this happened in the kingdom?" Hearing Yaka's shouting, Kosha couldn't help being stunned. In terms of IQ and strategic vision alone, Kosa is definitely far ahead of his peers. Otherwise, he would not have been able to become the leader of more than 500,000 people at the age of 18 or 19. And under his command, he also successfully trapped the king in the capital Albana. Like what Yaka said, it's not that he hasn't thought about it. This was after he was shot by a soldier in the king's guard. Kosha gradually gave up this idea and turned his suspicious eyes on King Cobra. Just when Kosha was confused, Cobra stood up and said, "I know you became rebels because you had no choice but to do so. This is all because of my incompetence as a king. This will cause the kingdom of Alabasta to fall into civil strife. This is my responsibility and I will not deny it. But there is one thing I must explain. The instigator of all this was Crocodile, one of the Shichibukai. His purpose is to seize the rule of the Alabasta kingdom. If you don't believe it, you can wait a few days. Vivi has already gone to deal with Crocodile. When Vivi comes back, she will naturally be able to prove my words." Quote. After Cobra finished speaking, it only caused a commotion among a small number of rebels. It can be seen that most of the rebels still don't believe what Cobra said. They all felt that Cobra was just stalling for time. Princess Vivi alone, trying to solve Crocodile, is undoubtedly a fantasy. Not a shred of credibility. Just when Cobra wanted to explain further, a guard on the city wall showed a strange smile. Suddenly he raised his gun and pointed it at Kosha, who was under the city. Yaka caught sight of the soldier's actions from the corner of his eye, and suddenly broke into a cold sweat on his back. He immediately shouted, "What do you want to do? Put down the gun." Unfortunately, when Yaka shouted, the soldier had already pulled the trigger. Bang! The sound of gunfire was not obvious in an environment with so many people, but it still attracted the attention of quite a few people. A bright yellow bullet shot directly into Kosha's head. The rebel general next to Kosha exclaimed, "Be careful." Kosha went to kill Crocodile because he heard Cobra mention Vivi. As he was in a trance, he didn't notice the flying bullets. Seeing the bullet about to hit Kosha's head, when the general next to Kusha was in crisis, he flew directly and threw Kusha to the ground. Only then did Kosha react. He hugged the general and asked repeatedly, "Kebi, how are you? Are you okay?" Kebi raised his head, showed an extremely painful smile, and said with difficulty, "Kosa, don't forget our childhood dream." It turns out that the shot just now failed to hit Kosha. But it hit Kebi in the back of the heart. As soon as he finished speaking, Kebi tilted his head to the side and lost his breath. "Kebi," Kosha shouted heartbreakingly. Kebi and Kosha have been playmates since childhood. Moreover, during the period of establishing a rebel army and marching eastward and westward, Kebi also gradually grew into Kosha's right-hand man. There is a brotherhood between the two. But he never thought that in order to save himself, Kebi would die under the secret gun of the king's army. At this time, Kosha was extremely angry and had only one thought in his mind: conquer Albana and kill King Cobra to avenge his brothers. Moreover, more than 500,000 rebels were also stimulated by the scene happening in front of them. For a time, they shared the same hatred and their morale was high. Kosha placed Kebi's body on the camel he was riding. With hands stained with Kebi's blood, he pulled out the sword from his waist and ordered loudly, "Brothers, rush with me. Kill King Cobra. Avenge the innocent refugees who were affected by the disaster. Avenge the dead Kebi." The 550,000 troops shouted in unison, "Kill! Kill! Kill!" The dark rebels launched a siege from all directions in Albana. Seeing this, Cobra knew that the situation was irreversible. They can only arrange for the king's troops to guard the city wall to prevent the rebels from attacking. At this time, Yaka hurried over. Seeing the scene of the rebels attacking the city, he punched the city wall angrily. Cobra quickly asked, "Have you found the soldier who fired just now?" Yaka shook his head dejectedly. The guy returned directly to the city after shooting. Then he disappeared into the crowd. Quote, Cobra let out a long sigh and said, "I guess that soldier was also a means arranged by Crocodile. I didn't expect it to be effective at this time. Yeah, if there wasn't this shot, maybe we can really wait until Princess Vivi comes back with Crocodile's evidence to prove everything to the rebels." But, alas, Yaka also scratched his head in annoyance, with a look of helplessness on his face. Looking at the rebels getting closer and closer, Yaka consoled him. "King, you'd better go back to the palace first. It's enough for us to guard here." Cobra pulled out the long sword used for decoration from his waist. "If the city is broken, what's the difference between staying on the city wall and returning to the palace? I'm going to wait on the city wall until Vivi and ye come back." Seeing Cobra's firm attitude, Yaka did not continue to persuade. This was a secret determination to protect King Cobra. "Even if I really can't resist it anymore, I must die before King Cobra." A brutal siege was about to begin. The rebels without weapons could only attack the city defenders with farm tools such as hoes and shovels and a few rags on their bodies, which served as armor. Although the rebels' equipment is extremely crude, there are simply too many rebels to hold them back. The king's troops on the four walls were unable to defend themselves against the mass offensive. More than a dozen people wielded hoes and swung them at the soldiers. Even if this soldier is wearing armor, he can't stop him. After letting out a scream, he was chopped into pieces. The battle became more and more intense, and the king's army was defeated steadily. 3 of the 4 walls have been lost. At this moment, Belle's figure appeared not far from the horizon. Belle shouted anxiously, "No, the battle has started over there." Vivi saw it in her eyes and was anxious in her heart. They were late after all. As long as the battle between the two sides begins, it means that someone will die. And once someone is sacrificed, the battle will not be calmed down so easily. In other words, Crocodile's purpose was achieved. At this time, Vivi can only look for Kosha, the leader of the rebels. Show the incriminating evidence they collected to Kosha. Then Kosha came forward to stop the rebels' actions. This is the best solution Vivi can think of. Bel, go find Kosha. Only he can end this battle. Baiyi held Vivi in his arms and said nothing. At this time, he chose to respect Vivi's decision. If things are really irreversible, he will choose to take action. In falcon form, Bel's vision was greatly enhanced. Even at an altitude of more than 1,000 meters, Kosha's position can be locked among the crowd. However, just as Bel dived towards Kosha, the surrounding rebels also recognized Bel's identity. I thought Bel wanted to come first and kill their leader Kosha. The rebels used the stolen crossbows to shoot at Bel. And a thick human wall was built in front of Kosha. Although the crossbow arrows fired by ordinary people are not a big threat to Bel. But in order to avoid stray arrows accidentally hurting Vivi, Byakuya directly used armament hockey to completely envelope Bel. These crossbow arrows were intercepted half a foot in front of Bel, and fell down weakly. On the contrary, many rebels were injured. Seeing the distance getting closer, Vivi shouted towards Kosha. Kosha quickly ordered them to stop. This war is all Crocodile's conspiracy. We have now solved Crocodile, and we have evidence of his evil deeds. All this is enough to prove that my father is innocent. If this battle continues, only the citizens of the kingdom of Alabasta will be harmed. Kosha turned around and saw Vivi standing next to Bel, and felt happy. Just as he was about to speak, he saw Baiyi holding Vivi in his arms again. A trace of sadness flashed in his eyes. He and Vivi have been playmates since childhood and can be considered childhood sweethearts. It would be a lie to say that he doesn't like Vivi. Just because when the whole country is in dire straits, only then would he choose to form a rebellion and take the lead against Vivi's father, King Cobra. But this does not affect his love for Vivi in his heart. I just didn't expect it. Seeing that Kusha was speechless, Vivi thought that Kusha didn't believe it. He took out the image phone bug directly from Baiyi's arms, and displayed the scene of Crocodile admitting that everything was his conspiracy in midair. Let all the rebels and the king's army present see it. You can hear it very clearly in the picture. How Crocodile used dancing powder to stir up conflict between the nation and the king. He also sent his subordinates who imitated the fruit's ability to disguise themselves as the king's army and secretly attacked Kosa. This made the rebels even more convinced that this was all done by the king. Even Crocodile's purpose is the same as what Cobra said before. Wants to seize control of the Alabasta kingdom. After the scene was played, the whole audience was speechless. The rebels and the king's army who were fighting looked at each other. What's going on? It turns out that this battle is really avoidable, and we were all used by Crocodile. Recall that from the beginning of the formation of the rebel army to the present siege of the royal capital Albana. Along the way, they eliminated many armies close to the king. Everyone's hands are more or less stained with the blood of the king's army. Many rebels realized the mistakes they had made, put down their farm tools, covered their faces and cried. There were also many rebels with complicated expressions, looking around, not knowing what to do. The war involving nearly 600,000 people stopped for a while. Cobra and Yaka looked at the scene in front of them. He couldn't help but smile with relief. Just as they thought, Vivi did it. With Crocodile's evidence of crime, he came back in time to end the war. Vivi said sincerely to Kusha, "Kusha, please stop. If the war continues, more people will be harmed." Kosha's mind was in confusion at this time. He recalled the time when he first formed the rebel army. He didn't want to believe what his father said that King Cobra would not do this. He also didn't believe what Vivi said to him. Resolutely moved toward what Crocodile expected, encouraging the disaster-stricken refugees. Form a rebel army and continuously attack the city. Even until the siege of the royal capital Alba, Kosha already thought that he was about to sit on the throne of the king of Alabasta kingdom. Marry Princess Vivi as your princess. Then lead the kingdom of Albastan to new glory. But with that picture, all dreams were shattered. The ideals that he upholds in forming his own rebel army. In fact, it was because he was too stupid and was deceived by Crocodile. Kosha looked at his hands, which were stained with the blood of countless innocent soldiers of the king's army. Then look at Vivi nestled in Baiyi's arms. Kosha feels that his life is gloomy. I only heard Kosha murmuring, "Stop." How can I stop? Kebi died at the hands of the king's army. And many people in the king's army died at the hands of the rebels. You tell me to stop now. So what should we rebels who have killed the king's army do? Are they all sentenced to death? Vivi was very sad when she heard the news of Kebi's death. Because Kebi is also her childhood playmate, the relationship between the two is also very good. Seeing Vivi crying and looking sad, Bai subconsciously held her in her arms and gently stroked Vivi's back with her palms. But Vivi didn't resist, put her hands on Bai's shoulders, and kept sobbing. When Kosha saw this situation, he even showed a bitter smile. Well, it turns out that the clown is me after all. After a while, Vivi's mood gradually recovered and she said, Kosa, you have to believe me. It seems that you have been deceived by Crocodile. Although certain punishments will be imposed, they will definitely not be as severe as the death penalty. There will be opportunities. Quote. Hearing Vivi's words, some of the rebels around him couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Now that they have been proven wrong, then there is no need to continue this war. And they naturally need to atone for the sins they committed before. That's fair enough. But there are also some rebels who cannot swallow this breath. When they resisted the king's army, they worked the hardest and killed the most. In their view, as long as the capital Albana is captured, the power of the Alabasta kingdom can be re-established. Then they belong to the ministers of Konglong, and their status has directly changed from farmers to nobles of the kingdom. Their descendants can enjoy the treatment of nobles. But now the situation is reversed. Let alone the nobles, even the status of farmers may not be maintained. He can only be reduced to the status of a criminal. In such a situation, even if they know that their behavior is wrong. But they are still unwilling to give up and are willing to give it another try. It's just that they still need a leader. And this leader is naturally Kosha. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on Kosha. Vivi comforted her again. Kosa, please stop, don't let innocent people shed more blood. Kosha shook his head and suddenly asked a question that had nothing to do with the situation at the moment. Vivi, have you ever liked me since you were a child? Vivi couldn't help but froze when she heard this. She raised her head and glanced at Bai beside her, and affirmed. Although we grew up together, I just regard you as my brother. Besides, I already have someone I like. Bai listened to the bloody conversation between the two and suddenly felt like a villain. He took away love with a sword and separated the two childhood sweethearts. But the crux of the matter is that Laozi didn't do anything. I'm just here to gain world power and promote the Knight organization. Who would ever want to kidnap a princess? Is this an unexpected gain? While Bai was thinking, Kusha asked angrily, what's good about him? He doesn't even dare to take off his mask. You can tell at a glance that he is not a good person. Quote. Hey, let's see if people are so shallow. If I wear a mask, you will say that I am not a good person. Then if I wear a hood and walk on the street, do you still have to put me in jail? Vivi knew that Yi was unwilling to take off his mask, and he must have his own considerations. And after this period of getting along, Vivi doesn't feel that Yi is a sinful person. On the contrary, she saw Yi's kind side in every detail of life. After all, someone like Yi has a kind heart, is handsome, strong, young enough, and most importantly, has a sense of mystery. Which girl who has just become pregnant cannot be confused when meeting her? What's more, Yi also solved Crocodile and helped Vivi eliminate the haze that had been weighing in her heart for several years. Only then did Vivi begin to fall in love with Yian. Just when Vivi was about to explain to Kosha, Bai suddenly spoke. Although I'm not a good person, I feel like I'm at least much better than you. In order to save the kingdom of Alabasta, Vivi. And where were you when you took the risk and sneaked into the Baroque studio organized by Crocodile? Quote. Where were you when Vivi's life was threatened? Quote. Let me tell you, you are forming a rebel army to attack the city and want to overthrow the Cobra royal family. During this process, did you believe what Vivi told you? Have you done anything helpful to Vivi in this country? In the final analysis, you are just a pawn under Crocodile. Under Bai's questioning, Kowa was speechless. After pondering for a long time, Kosha said with a helpless smile, maybe you were right. I was wrong in all this. But I have no way out now. Quote. Vivi said anxiously. Kosa. Since you were wrong, let's continue to be wrong. As long as we can break through Albana today, kill Cobra, and establish a new dynasty. Then no one will know we were wrong. The people will only think that we overthrew Cobra's tyrannical rule. Consider us the heroes of Alabasta Kingdom. Quote, Kosha whispered, I don't know if these words were spoken to everyone, or if they were his own words to persuade himself. Bai Yi looked at Kosha, but he didn't expect that this boy with thick eyebrows and big eyes was actually a traitor. Kosha, who had already made his decision, raised his right fist high and shouted loudly. Continue to attack the city. We must conquer Albana today. Kill, kill, kill. Under the leadership of Kusha, the rebels who were unwilling to plead guilty were even more diligent in their killing. An even more brutal battle broke out on the city wall than before. Even those rebels who felt that they were wrong were coerced by their companions. Involuntarily launched an attack on the king's army. At this time, even if Byakuya takes action to kill Kusha, it will only further boost the morale of the rebels and have the opposite effect. Listening to the intensive screams in his ears, he looked at Kosha's increasingly indifferent expression. Vivi suddenly became anxious and thought of rushing into the crowd to stop the fight between the two sides. Are you crazy? Bai Yoruichi pulled Vivi back. At this time, it was obvious that the rebels and the king's army were already fighting. Your Royal Highness, the princess, will go to stop me, and the king's army may take some care. But those rebels don't care so much. Vivi looked at Bai Yi helplessly. To her, these were her people, and she really didn't want to watch her people kill each other. But, looking at Vivi's pitiful appearance, Bai Yi said confidently, didn't I say that putting down the rebels is one of the conditions we agreed on? Leave these rebels to me. Quote, you. After hearing Bai Yi's words, Vivi suddenly became even more anxious. No, 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 recalling the huge impact of Bai Yi's punch a few days ago. Then if Bai Yi comes to deal with the rebels, it is estimated that not many of the more than 500,000 rebels will survive. As long as Bai Yi is allowed to take action, it is better to let the two sides fight like this. Bai Yi guessed what Vivi was thinking and smiled. Don't worry, I promise to stop this war without hurting anyone. Vivi wondered, is this possible? Bai Yi smiled and said no more. He stretched out his legs and stepped on the void, as if there were invisible steps under his feet. Let Bai Yoruichi walk step by step into the air, above everyone's heads. It has been nearly a year since the last time I used the Imperial engine. I don't know what the consequences of using the Emperor's engine will be with the current strength. As a slight heartbeat sounded, the rebels fighting nearby couldn't help but feel inexplicable palpitations. It seemed as if a natural disaster was about to strike, and I began to feel anxious and uneasy. As time goes by, the heartbeat becomes louder and faster. In less than a moment, the sound of heartbeats enveloped the entire battlefield. Boom, boom, boom. Every time the heartbeat sounded, they felt that their heart was being grasped by an invisible hand. This excruciating pain constantly stimulated their sensitive nerves. All the rebels looked at the white night in the sky, with expressions of extreme fear on their faces. It was as if I had seen the greatest horror in my life all at once. This is a fear that grows spontaneously within them. In their eyes, the white knight in midair is a god. Being able to decide their life or death with just one word. This is an instinctive fear. A fear of lower creatures towards higher creatures. It cannot be overcome by one's own will. Under the exaggeration of this fear, the more than 500,000 rebels all put down their weapons, their legs weakened, and they knelt on the ground. With a panic-stricken look on his face, he kept kowtowing and praying towards Bai Yi in midair. Even if the weapons of the king's soldiers are about to cut down on them. It also failed to change their behavior of begging Bai Yi to be let go. Cobra, Gakar, Vivi, Bell and Kosha. Everyone stared blankly at the crazy scene in front of them. What kind of scene would it be like for more than 500,000 people to kneel down and worship one person? Cobra has been the king of the Alabasta Kingdom for more than 30 years. But he had also never seen such a crazy scene. Even Bai Yi was stunned for a long time, and it took him a while to react. He immediately said happily to himself, it seems that the more than 500,000 rebels are not many. It was solved in just a few minutes. It's really relaxing. However, there is a big difference between the Imperial engine and Conqueror's hockey. One is more fearful and the other is more domineering. This also made Bai Yi suddenly have other thoughts in his mind. Even if Bai Yi disarmed the emperor's engine, the frightened expressions on the faces of the rebels still did not change. Completely lost the ability to resist. Bai Yeluo returned to Vivi and chuckled. Look, let's just say I can deal with the rebels without hurting anyone. After hearing Bai Yi's voice, Vivi came back to her senses and hugged Bai Yi excitedly. He said happily, "You are awesome. You are so amazing." Feel the wonderful touch brought by Vivi's beautiful figure, and then listen to Vivi's ambiguous words. Bai Yi shouted that he couldn't bear it. Not far away, Kosha sat slumped on the ground, his eyes blank, and he kept muttering. Is this the end of the 550,000 strong army? Thinking back to 5 minutes ago, he commanded 550,000 rebels, high-spirited and ambitious. It is bound to capture the royal capital Albana. Lead the Alabasta kingdom to a better tomorrow. But just 5 minutes later, everything had changed. 550,000 rebels were captured without bloodshed. Even the goddess I like is now lying in the arms of others with a happy look on her face. Not to mention how uncomfortable this feeling is. Bell, a single guy. No, a single guy might not be able to stand the sweetness between Bai Yi and Vivi. Choose to stay away from them and take down Kosha directly. Under the orders of Cobra, the king's army, led by Yaka, began to take the rebels into custody. At this time, the rebels had no fighting ability, kneeling on the ground, looking dull. Let the king's army put him in chains. This ended a war involving hundreds of thousands of people. Vivi looked at the scene in front of her and felt like she was in a dream. Starting today, the kingdom of Alabasta will usher in its new life. And all of this was brought about by the man in front of him. Vivi looked at Bai Yi and gradually became obsessed. 3 days later, Lucci, Bruno and Robin arrived belatedly and finally arrived at the royal capital Albana. During these 3 days, Bai Yi was repeatedly tempted by Vivi and was mentally tortured. You think you should eat Vivi? Not to mention she is an adult, she is not even 16 years old. If he really wanted to eat it, Bai Yeliang would feel bad. After all, he is also a good young man who has received 9 years of compulsory education. But if you say you don't want to take it, Vivi took the initiative and almost drugged Bai Yi. Then I went to his room in the middle of the night. Under such entanglement, Bai Yi lost a lot of weight visibly to the naked eye. In these days, Vivi also learned about Bai Yi's true identity, that he was Major General Marine, and her love for Bai Yi became even stronger. But in order not to reveal Bai Yi's identity, Vivi still calls Bai Yi Yi, and Bai Yi usually wears a mask. After all, Vivi has met herself, so she will know her true identity sooner or later. Moreover, Bai Yi also believed that Vivi would not betray him. Tell her it's not a big deal. However, this is limited to Vivi alone. After waiting for Robin to arrive, Bai Yi didn't want to delay it any longer. Let Vivi take them to find the historical text that records the information about Pluton. This historical text has been guarded by the Vivi family for generations. For this reason, their family gave up the opportunity to live in Mariajoya and become a celestial dragon. But it was precisely because of this piece of historical text that Crocodile's peeps were attracted. The kingdom of Alabasta fell into years of civil strife. The three of them walked through the king's palace, and behind a plain wall, opened the door to the secret room. Through the dark and winding stairs, we came to a spacious room. In the center of the room stood a giant rectangular stone that was 2 people tall and 1 person wide. There are densely packed incomprehensible words written on it. In the eyes of Vivi and Bai Yi, this thing is no different from a heavenly book. Like oracle bone inscriptions and pictographs, you can more or less guess 1 or 2 characters. As for the historical text, nothing is really identifiable. But in the eyes of professionals like Robin, the words on the stones are clear at a glance. For Robin, being able to find all the historical texts and understand the historical information recorded on them is her biggest dream in life. Unexpectedly, now I actually have the opportunity to see a piece of historical text. Robin gently stroked the rough stone surface of the historical text with his hand, as if he could feel the desire for the content to be known to the world. Bai Yi also looked at the historical text curiously, and pressed his finger lightly on it, but it didn't have any impact. You know, with Bai Yi's current strength, even with a little force, he can easily crush the iron. And the hardness of this historical text is actually far stronger than steel. After seeing Bai Yi's actions, Robin reminded, historical texts are made of indestructible materials. It is said that only the Kazuki clan of Wano country can carve text on stone tablets with special crafting methods. After hearing Robin's reminder, Bai Yi thought about it carefully, and it seemed that this was indeed the case in the anime. So he subconsciously increased the strength on his hands and used all his strength. Crack! The sound of the broken stone tablet was unusually obvious in the silent room, which immediately attracted the attention of Robin and Vivi. Forehead. Bai Yi picked up a thumb-sized stone from the stone tablet and said with some embarrassment. Isn't it said that it cannot be destroyed? Why does it break when touched? At this time, Robin's eyes were about to burst into flames. This was a historical text. There are only 30 pieces of historical texts in the entire ocean, and many scholars have been unable to find any piece of them throughout their lives. But she didn't expect that the guy in front of her would actually destroy the historical text in front of her. If the remaining reason in his mind hadn't vaguely reminded Robin, the man in front of me is a strong man who can kill crocodile with one punch. She could probably take action against Bai Yi directly. Bai Yi didn't care about Robin's anger. Because from the anime, we can understand how much Robin attaches importance to the historical text. So Robin's current reaction is also normal. Let me see if I can put this back. Bai Yi took a thumb-sized stone and put it into the gap when he suddenly heard the system prompt sound in his mind. Discovered recyclable items. Historical text intelligence. Historical text recycling price, 3,000 points of world source power. How can this system recycle everything? At this time, Bai Yi became even more convinced that ancient weapon, Pluton, had high recycling value. Bai Yi was surprised, and increased the strength of his hand, and once again broke off a fist-sized stone from above. At this time, Robin really couldn't hold back the anger in his heart. When Vivi saw Bai Yoruichi break off a piece, it looked very funny. So, I secretly tried it myself and exerted my strength suddenly. Hiss. Vivi took a breath, arched her cute little nose, and said in pain, "It hurts me so much. Why is this thing so hard?" Bai Yi looked at Robin, who was so angry that he was almost combusting, and Vivi, who kept shaking her hands at the side. The brain was running rapidly. How could the historical text be recovered by the system in a way that could hide it from the two people? Simply relying on force as a method only foolhardy people will use. White Knight wants to outwit. Ahem. Bai Yi coughed lightly, pretending to be nonchalant. Do you think this piece of historical text is fake? The angry Robin was stunned for a moment, not expecting why Bai Yi would say this. Vivi also stopped shaking her hands and said doubtfully, "But, this is the historical text that our family has guarded for generations, how could it be false?" Bai Yi explained, "You see, Robin said that the true text of history cannot be damaged. But the one in front of me was easily broken off into a piece. What does this mean?" Vivi's eyes lit up and she shouted, "I know. I know. Come on, tell me." Vivi admired, "This shows that you are too strong." Quote. Hearing Vivi's answer, Bai Yi almost fainted. This was not the answer he wanted at all. Robin on the side said suspiciously, "You mean, this historical text is fake? That's why it's so easily damaged?" "That's right." Bai Yi looked at Robin, who was already on the road, and continued, "There is only one explanation now. If we want to know the authenticity of this historical text, we can only verify its authenticity based on what is recorded above. And that's where you rely on your expertise, Robin." Quote. Although Robin didn't quite believe that the historical text in front of him was fake. But what Bai Yi said was not unreasonable. If you can find Pluton, according to the above records, it proves that it is true. Otherwise, it is false. Under Bai Yi's words, even Robin, a history expert, was a little confused. Is the piece of historical text in front of me true or false? However, the relevant information recorded on the stone tablet is indeed about Pluton. The birth of Pluton is recorded in detail above. The terrifying power of Pluton, and the location of Pluton, the only ship left on the sea. According to Robin's original intention, she was not very willing to tell Bai Yi the news. Because she knew very well that if this powerful ancient weapon appeared in the sea, It will definitely set off a bloody storm on the sea that will sweep most of the people away. I don't know how many countries will be destroyed by then. How many happy families will be torn apart. Even if Robin died at the hands of others, he didn't want to have such consequences. But I don't know whether the historical text in front of me is true or false. It is also unknown whether the information recorded above is correct. If this piece of history proves to be false, then Robin doesn't have to plan on sacrificing himself. Although Robin could tell Shiro Yoruichi the wrong location. In this way, even if Pluton cannot be found, you can also use the excuse that this piece of historical text is fake. But as a historian, Robin also wanted to know the authenticity of this historical text. So despite all the entanglements, Robin still told Bai Yi the real address. The location of Pluton recorded above should be under an oasis not far east of Albana. Vivi frowned and thought, an oasis not far from the king. But the whole area around the king's capital is desert. Where did the oasis come from? Vivi, who has lived in Albana since she was a child, naturally knows the environment around Albana very well. Bai Yi asked, could it be that there was an oasis there many years ago, but the oasis gradually disappeared over the years? After hearing Bai Yi's reminder, a name that she had read in a book flashed in Vivi's mind. You should be talking about Desert Emerald, right? I have seen in books before that place seemed to be an oasis 200 years ago, called Desert Emerald. But within the past 200 years, because a large number of people went there to fetch water, the lake dried up and turned into a desert. Quote. Robin nodded and said, I seem to have seen this name before, it's probably this place. With the help of Vivi and Robin for confirmation, the location of Desert Emerald was quickly located. But before leaving, Bai Yi suddenly said, we might as well take this historical text with us. Whether it is true or false, it has brought serious harm to the kingdom of Alabasta. If it is allowed to remain here, it is difficult to guarantee that no one will be interested in the kingdom of Alabasta after hearing the news. So for the sake of safety, it is better not to keep this historical text here. Bai Yi kept looking at Vivi when he spoke. After all, this is something that Vivi and her family have guarded for 800 years. If you want to take it away, you will definitely need to convince them. But what Bai Yi didn't expect was that before he could tell the reason he had made up in his mind, Vivi took the initiative and said, Yi, what you said does make sense. The historical text continues to remain here and has a considerable impact on the kingdom of Alabasta. Judging from the current situation, the kingdom can no longer withstand any trouble. Might as well just take it away. Quote. Bai Yi asked curiously, don't you need to discuss it with your father? It's okay, I think father can understand me. After saying that, he winked at Bai Yi playfully, looking very cute. Bai Yi understood Vivi's intention instantly. Most likely, Vivi saw that she wanted this piece of historical text, so she agreed so easily. At this moment, Bai Yi was filled with emotion. He touched Vivi's sky blue hair and said softly, thank you. Vivi looked at Bai Yi maliciously and said, if you really want to thank me, why don't we two tonight? Let's talk again. Bai Yi said awkwardly. Vivi stomped the ground angrily, are you a man? When Vivi asked her about the dignity of men, Bai Yi naturally couldn't give in any more. Bai Yi gritted his teeth and said, come on, tell me how long you have until you reach adulthood. When you come of age, I will let you know what it means to be a real man. Quote. It will take a long time to wait. Seeing Vivi pouting her little lips and puffing up her cheeks, Bai Yi was very moved. He asked slightly tentatively, how about 17 years old? No, 15 years old. 15 is too early. Then 16. Bai Yi thought, it's not impossible to be 16. After all, people in the pirate world develop early. Women usually have children when they reach the age of 16. By the way, how long do you have until you are 16? Vivi blushed and snickered, there are still 3 months left. You must come to me then. Forehead. Only then did Bai Yi realize that all this was part of Vivi's plan. Before Bai Yi could say anything, Robin's resentful voice came from the side. Hey, I said that if you two want to show off your affection, it wouldn't be appropriate to do it in front of me, an outsider. Listening to the profound conversation between the two, even Robin felt a little shy. After hearing Robin's voice, Vivi realized that there was a third person in the room. For a moment, like a frightened cub, he subconsciously hid behind Bai Yi. At this time, Vivi's face was like a tomato, so red that water could squeeze out of it, and she was so embarrassed that she was so embarrassed. In order to plot against Bai Yi, he actually said those words in front of Robin. If this spreads out in the future, she, the princess, will be embarrassed to see others. Seeing Vivi's shy look, Bai Yi came to the rescue and said, "Let's go to Desert Emerald first to see if we can find any trace of Pluton." With that said, Bai Yi used the system space to take away the historical text. This 1000 points of world source power is basically obtained. Next, it depends on how much world source power can be exchanged for the Pluton found. Vivi found a book about desert jade that she had read before. Following the instructions above, the three of them came to a desert. Bai Yi looked around and saw nothing but sand. Only the outline of Albana can be faintly seen here, and nothing else. "Vivi, are you sure this is Desert Emerald?" Vivi said uncertainly, "I'm not sure about this either. Everything recorded on it was from 200 years ago. Forget it, since the book says it is here, you will know after giving it a try. You stay away first, so that it doesn't affect you." When Vivi and Robin retreated far enough, Bai Yi took a deep breath, his palms were like knives, and the cherry blossom-shaped domineering energy flowed around the palms, which was really beautiful. Bai Yi used all his strength and swung out towards the desert in front of him, slashing on the ground in front of him. I saw a slender crack suddenly opened where Bai Yi's palm fell, spreading towards the far end at an extremely fast speed. The ground began to tremble, like an earthquake, and the cracks became larger and deeper. Bai Yi looked down along the cracks and saw endless darkness. All he could see was endless darkness, which gave people a sense of fear. Robin walked over and asked nervously, "Can you see Pluton?" "You can't see anything here." Bai Yi shook his head and said, "Maybe I should go down and take a look." "Go down and look." Vivi glanced down, unable to see how high it was. "If I jump down, I don't know how long it will take to land." "Yi, is it too dangerous to go down there?" Vivi dissuaded, "Maybe we are looking in the wrong place, Pluton may not be here. It may also be that there are errors in the historical text. There is no need to do such a dangerous thing." Quote, "No, I have to find Pluton. It's okay. With my strength, nothing unexpected will happen." Bai Yi comforted. If Robin didn't intentionally give the wrong address, Pluton is probably down here. If Pluton can be found, at least 10,000 world source powers can be recovered. This is quite a harvest for Bai Yi. In terms of Bai Yi's strength, these dangers are nothing compared to 10,000 world source powers. Moreover, he didn't think anything unexpected would happen. Robin looked at the crack, pondered for a long time and said, "I'll go down with you." For Robin, she also wanted to confirm whether there really was a Pluton down there. This was related to the authenticity of the historical text, which made her very concerned. Upon hearing that Robin was willing to go down, Vivi immediately said, "I'll go down with you too." Bai Yi smiled and said, "Stop making trouble, you two don't go down. I can go down alone. I can ensure my own safety by myself, but if there are two of you, I'm afraid it won't be that easy." Bai Yi's words made sense. If there was any danger below, the two of them would have become a burden to Bai Yi if they followed Bai Yi down. Seeing that the two of them didn't say anything, Bai Yi said, "Wait for me up there." After saying that, he jumped directly into the abyss. Vivi watched Bai Yi's figure disappear before her eyes, her eyebrows furrowed in worry, her eyes full of anxiety. As Bai Yi fell freely, he felt the whistling wind in his ears and the sound of friction between sand grains. Anxiety arose inexplicably in my heart. Coupled with the darkness in front of him, this irritability was even more obvious. After falling for about a minute, Bai Yi still hasn't landed. This abnormality attracted Bai Yi's attention. Byakuya quickly used moonwalk to stop himself in midair. Looking up, the crack that came in was too far away and was too small to be seen. A strong fishy smell suddenly appeared in the air, and a hot wind blew from time to time, making the smell spread and become more obvious. Smelling the smell, Bai Yi frowned subconsciously, looked at the endless darkness at his feet, and murmured, "What does this smell like? Is there something rotten down there?" But Bai Yi also realized that this was not enough and he could not continue to fall like this. Bai Yi was going to find something that could illuminate in the system space and store. Check your surroundings. Soon, Bai Yi found the flashlight that he had put in from the system space. The moment Bai Yi turned on the flashlight, his heart almost stopped. In the pitch-black abyss, the flashlight emitted a conspicuous light, shining on a position not far in front of Bai Yi. Only 2 orange-yellow vertical pupils the size of copper bells were seen, reflecting Bai Yi's figure under the light. It may be that the light suddenly appeared in the dark environment, which made Zhetong feel very uncomfortable and blinked. Bai Yi slowly shined the flashlight around, only to see a snake head as big as a house, parked not far in front of him. The giant python also spit out red and purple snakes that were more than 10 meters long. Every time it poked out, a hot wind blew up, carrying a fishy smell. Only then did Bai Yi understand why he smelled the fishy smell and felt the hot wind before. Good guy, it turns out that this giant python in front of me is the cause. For some reason, the giant python did not choose to attack immediately when it discovered Bai Yi. The snake's head swayed slightly, and Snake Shinzi kept approaching Bai Yi. Seeing the giant python, it did not attack, and Bai Yi didn't even have any thoughts of escaping. Instead, he held a flashlight and shone it along the python's head, and made comments from time to time. Hey, this body is almost as thick as Jack's in beast form. Bai Yi was quite shocked as he looked at the snake's body that was wrapped around and around. One of the scales on it was as big as a washbasin. One can imagine how many years this snake lived before it could grow to such a huge size. While observing in the white night, I suddenly discovered that the place where the flashlight shined actually emitted a dim light. Are snake scales reflective? Bai Yi quickly moved closer to take a closer look. Only then did he realize that it was not the snake's scales that could reflect the light. It was a cylindrical steel product similar to a cannon pipe. Because the cannon body was too long, a small section emerged from the entanglement of the snake body, which was discovered by Bai Yi. As Bai Yi looked down, he discovered more and more steel products similar to gun barrels. In the white night, you can even see the fence surrounding the ship to prevent items from falling, as well as the mast where the sail can be hung. Bai Yi thought to himself, why does this thing wrapped by a giant python look more and more like a ship? Wait, a ship. Bai Yi opened his eyes wide and looked at the items in front of him. Could this be Pluton? Bai Yi spent a lot of time observing it thoroughly from top to bottom. I was even more certain that the boat-like thing in front of me was Pluton. Now Bai Yi finally figured out why he could create such a deep crack in the ground with his full palm. Because Pluton was standing upright underground, the crack created by his palm was just above Pluton. That's why such a deep crack was created and Pluton could be found so easily. Again, this is because Robin did not intentionally translate the wrong message to him. The Pluton in front of us is more than 5,000 meters long, almost as big as an ordinary small island. Driving such a thing on the sea, you can build your own small kingdom, which can accommodate tens of thousands of people at the same time. Moreover, after being buried underground for many years, the surface of Pluton is still as smooth as new without any rust. It is conceivable that Pluton is indeed the highest artistic achievement created by combining all the shipbuilders at that time. However, Bai Yi did not forget the purpose of searching for Pluton this time, and tried to put his hand on Pluton, feeling the coldness coming from the place where it was attached. Sure enough, the expected system prompt sounded in my mind. Discovered recyclable items. Pluton only, damaged recycling price, 12,000 points of world source power. Bai Yi almost shouted in excitement. This time, the kingdom of Alabasta really did not come in vain. Remove those plot changes that have not yet been resolved. Just the Pluton in front of me and the historical text lying in the system space are already worth 15,000 points of world source power. And he even managed to seduce someone else's princess. Bai Yi wished that this kind of thing would happen again and again. Bai Yi thought a little greedily, even in a damaged state, it is worth 12,000 points of world source power. If this is in a complete state, it will not start with at least 20,000 world sources. I also thought that the damage to Pluton was probably caused by the python that had been entangled for many years. However, it is precisely because of this giant python that no one has discovered Pluton for so many years. Bai Yi is not a greedy person, just these 12,000 points of world source power are worth his trip. Great harvest! Great harvest! A look of joy appeared on Bai Yi's face, and he muttered in his heart, confirming the recovery. The Fluten, which was as big as an island, disappeared in an instant before Bai Yi's eyes. Moreover, the piece of historical text in the system space is also recycled. 15,000 points of world source power arrived. Just when Bai Yi was about to open the system panel and appreciate how much world power he still had, there was a huge sound like a landslide overhead. Bai Yi looked up and saw that it was after Fluten was recovered. There is a very large vacancy where Fluten used to be. The sand and gravel on top naturally began to fall down, sinking in until the void was filled. Grass. If he didn't run away, he would probably be buried inside. On the ground, Vivi, who kept wandering around the crack because she was worried about Bai Yi, suddenly felt the ground begin to tremble crazily. The sand and gravel beneath our feet began to sink downward along the cracks. An unfathomable circular pit gradually formed. Vivi didn't notice and fell down into the sand. I wanted to stand up, but there was no place to support my hands and feet. Her legs seemed to be held by ruthless hands, trying to pull her into the deep pit. Vivi couldn't help but feel a trace of despair in her heart, and Bai Yi's figure gradually appeared in her eyes. But Bai Yi is currently in the crack, and the situation he encounters must be worse than her. At this critical moment, two arms suddenly stretched out from the ground in front of Vivi and grabbed Vivi's hands hard to prevent her from falling into the deep pit. Vivi looked up and realized that it was Robin who used the fruit power to save her. But looking at Robin's struggling expression, you can tell that Robin is under a lot of pressure now. After all, this can be regarded as using human power to fight against the power of nature. After about 3 minutes, Robin's face turned pale and he was covered in sweat. The thin clothes she wore stuck to her skin due to sweat, showing off Robin's beautiful figure. She could hardly hold on any longer. Just when Robin's strength was exhausted and he was about to lose his strength, the pit seemed to have finally been filled. The desert has returned to calm. Only the dent that appeared under Vivi proved what had just happened. Seeing that Vivi was safe and sound, Robin could no longer hold on. His body softened and he collapsed on the ground, his breast shaking with his violent breathing. Vivi, who was saved, did not immediately thank Robin. Vivi kept digging the gravel under her body with her hands, her face full of disbelief, and she kept muttering. Is it okay if Yi is so strong? He can definitely come out on his own, absolutely. As she spoke, 2 lines of clear tears slipped from Vivi's sand-covered cheeks and fell into the sand. Vivi's delicate fingers had been dug and bright red blood flowed out, but even so she did not stop digging. For a long time, Vivi knelt on the ground, holding her head in her hands and sobbing continuously. Not far away, Robin looked at Vivi's sad look and felt very sad. Although Bai Yi is indeed very strong, in such a natural disaster, no matter how strong he is, he may not be able to avoid the fate of death. To be honest, Robin didn't dislike Bai Yi. Regarding Bai Yi's death, Robin also felt a touch of regret in his heart. But just as Vivi was feeling sad, she suddenly felt the ground begin to tremble violently again. I thought the ground had started to collapse again. Robin's face turned pale. At this moment, she didn't have any strength in her body and couldn't even stand up, let alone escape from this place. However, what Robin didn't expect was that Vivi will come over and carry herself on her back, walking towards a safe place. Robin thought of when he was the vice president of Baroque Working Group. Although he did not personally attack the citizens of Alabasta Kingdom, but it also secretly played a role in fueling the flames. Even if Vivi doesn't save herself at this moment, she has nothing to say. But she still chose to save me. At this moment, Robin's closed heart began to feel a little touched. It was as if a ray of light suddenly came from a place that had never seen sunlight before. The two of them walked hundreds of meters before they finally stopped feeling the shaking on the ground. Robin looked at Vivi with tears streaming down her face and softly advised, "Don't think so much first. He is so strong, and everything will be fine for sure." Vivi nodded decisively and said, "I believe he will be fine. But I have to see him before I feel relieved. I will now go back to find my father and send an army to dig out this place." Quote, Even if he is really dead, I will find his body. Listening to the firmness in Vivi's tone, Robin sighed and stopped trying to persuade her. Maybe this is the feeling of young people. Just as the two were about to turn around and leave, they suddenly heard a shocking roar from behind. Boom! There was an explosion out of thin air. Along with the violent shaking of the ground, a huge black shadow directly broke through the ground and rose into the sky, bringing up the sky with gravel. Vivi and Robin looked at the huge figure that suddenly appeared behind them in shock, and their vigilance increased to the extreme. Because it was a huge python that was nearly a kilometer long, and its body, which was comparable to a city wall, was enough to make ordinary people feel a deep sense of fear. Looking at the giant python rushing out of the ground, Vivi thought. Could it be that the ground collapse that was caused earlier was caused by the battle between the giant python and Etienne? But before Vivi could think about it for a long time, she heard Robin's panic prompt. Let's go. That giant python is targeting us. Vivi looked up and saw the python's eyes, which were bigger than a human, staring at her and Robin. There is no way I can deal with the giant python with my own abilities. Robin expended too much energy to save himself and could not continue to use the fruit's ability. The two of them now can be said to be like lambs waiting to be slaughtered in front of the giant python, with no power to fight back. At this time, the huge body of the giant python began to swim on the desert, heading towards Vivi and Robin at an extremely fast speed. Listening to the rustling sound made by the friction between the scales of the giant python and the gravel, it gets closer and closer. The two of them could not help but feel despair. There was no way they could run away from the giant python. At the moment when the giant python was approaching, Vivi thought with despair, is it considered that I died with Shiro Yoruichi? In fact, Vivi already had a death wish in her heart when she knew that Bai Yi might die underground. It's just that she didn't want to believe it until she saw Bai Yi's body. Now after seeing the giant python, she has gradually confirmed this fact. So facing the impending death, Vivi became calm. Facing the current situation, Robin could only sigh helplessly. However, I can see a piece of historical text before I die. It can be considered a blessing in misfortune. But just as they were closing their eyes and waiting to die, they suddenly heard a familiar voice coming from their ears. Hey, you two are not afraid at all when facing such a huge python. Is this the sound of Bai Yi? The two opened their eyes and found that the giant python was staying a few meters in front of them. Those two eyes, which were larger than humans, looked at them blinkingly, as if they were looking at precious animals. Bai Yi suddenly appeared on top of the giant python. Although he looked a little embarrassed, the mask on his face had disappeared, and there was a lot of dust on his clothes. But it can be seen that Bai Yi was not injured at all. Bai Yi jumped down from the giant python's head and landed in front of Vivi. Night. Vivi was overjoyed and threw herself directly into Bai Yi's arms. Maybe Vivi was too surprised and forgot about Robin on her back. Bai Yi's eyes widened as he watched Robin move toward him with a panicked look on his face. Robin wanted to avoid it, but now her whole body was weak and she couldn't exert any strength at all. It was a luxury to even move. So, the moment Vivi hugged Bai Yi tightly and pressed her face against Bai Yi's chest. Robin and Bai Yi also had their faces close to each other, falling into a daze. If Bai Yi hadn't subconsciously turned his head to the side, the two of them could have kissed each other. Moreover, Bai Yi could even clearly feel the warmth coming from Robin's smooth cheeks. Regarding this embarrassing situation, even a mature woman like Robin, who has experienced many dangers, blushes. At this moment, the three people formed a beautiful picture. Vivi hugged Bai Yi and kept sobbing, "Ooh, you scared me to death, I thought you." Faced with Vivi's affection, Bai Yi said that she was very touched. However, now that Vivi is pressed against his chest and Robin is cheek to cheek, it looks even more weird. Bai Yi said awkwardly, then, "Vivi, can you let go?" "No, I don't want it. I want to hold you like this," Vivi said firmly, hugging Bai Yi tighter with her hands. Looking at that look, I wish I could melt Bai Yi into my body and never be separated. But, this is really not good. Listening to Bai Yi's words, Vivi raised her head and said dissatisfiedly, "How come?" But just as she was halfway through her words, Vivi's voice stopped and she said in a trembling voice. "You are," Bai Yi explained, "it's not because you hugged me too tightly that I'm like this now. Only then did Vivi realize that Robin was carried here on her own. No wonder Bai Yi wanted to push herself away just now, it turned out to be like this. Thinking of this, Vivi quickly put Robin down and apologized repeatedly. Bai Yi, on the other hand, put his hands in his pockets and looked indifferent, since he was not at a disadvantage anyway. It was Robin who spoke first, breaking the embarrassment. By the way, did you see Pluton down there? Vivi pointed tremblingly at the giant python behind Bai Yi, and asked repeatedly, yeah, and what's going on with this big snake? Facing the two people's inquiries, Bai Yi was already prepared and explained. Pluton seems to have seen it, but it's a pity that it has been entangled by Xiaohe for many years. The weapons and facilities above have been damaged and cannot be used at all. And its size is so big that there is no way to get it out. Quote. Hearing Bai Yi's answer, Robin thought to himself, since there is really Pluton below, it means that this historical text is true. However, Robin did not mention anything about the historical text. After all, Robin is only interested in the information recorded in the historical text. I am not very interested in the historical text itself. Vivi's focus is on Xiaohe mentioned by Bai Yi. Vivi looked at the giant python that was 1,000 meters long and looked at Bai Yi in shock. Do you call this Xiaohe? So what size do you need to be in order to become a big black? Bai Yi patted Xiaohe's head and continued, when I found Pluton, Xiaohe happened to be wrapped around Pluton. And it didn't even take the initiative to attack me. I felt that this thing was quite spiritual, so I didn't attack it. Later, for some reason, the ground began to tremble violently, and sand and gravel sank in. Xiaohe dug into the ground like crazy, and then I took advantage of Xiaohe's head and rushed out from the ground. Quote. After hearing Bai Yi's explanation, the two of them didn't suspect anything. After all, Pluton was severely damaged and unusable, and it sank into the ground. Even if a lot of manpower and material resources were spent to dig it out, it would still be just a piece of scrap metal. Doesn't work, and Bai Yi knew what Vivi had done when she thought she had fallen into the ground. I felt very distressed immediately. Exchange healing medicine from the system store to heal the injury on Vivi's hand. When the three of them returned to Albana, Xiaohe did not follow Bai Yi and the others. After a while, he got into the sand again. Walking on the road, Bai Yi looked at Robin, who was silent along the way, and suddenly asked, you should know my identity, right? Because when Bai Yi came out of the ground on Xiaohe, the mask on his face fell off due to an accident, revealing his true face. Moreover, the two of them were so close to each other before, even to the point of being face to face. A glimmer of difference flashed through Robin's eyes during the white night. I guess that Robin must have recognized him. Vivi's heart skipped a beat when she heard this. Bai Yi's identity cannot be known to others. Even after he found out, he still called him Knight. And Robin actually knew Bai Yi's true identity. Bai Yi wouldn't attack Robin on the road. If Bai Yi had wanted to attack Robin before, Vivi would not have stopped him at all. After all, Robin is the vice president of Baroque Works, and Vivi is quite hostile to him. Just because Robin was useful to Bai Yi, she didn't express this hatred. But Robin's previous act of sacrificing his life to save her made Vivi instantly change her view of Robin. Therefore, Vivi doesn't want Robin to die in Bai Yi's hands. Facing Bai Yi's inquiry, Robin did not choose to play dumb and said with a wry smile. Yes, I did recognize you, Major General Bai Yi. When Robin worked under Crocodile, he often came into contact with various intelligence. One of them is Major General Bukuya's defeat of Jack, one of the most famous characters of the Beast Pirates. There is a frontal photo of Bai Yi on it. So the moment he saw Bai Yi lose his mask, Robin instantly recognized Bai Yi's true identity. What she couldn't understand was that Bai Yi could become a major general of the Marine headquarters at such a young age. And also has the strength to defeat Jack. No matter what, you can guess that Bai Yi's career in Marine will definitely be bright. But it was such a person who formed a mysterious organization, Yi. He also personally killed Crocodile, one of the Shichibukai recognized by the world government. If this matter is exposed, Bai Yi will definitely be suspected by the world government. The road to future promotion may be interrupted. It is not even impossible for the world government to issue a wanted warrant. But he did it anyway. Therefore, Bai Yi killed her to prevent the news from leaking out. Robin could understand, too. Although Vivi wanted to ask Bai Yi to let Robin go at this moment. But she also knew how serious the impact would be if Bai Yi's true identity was leaked. In Vivi's heart, she still has a clear distinction between Qingbai and Robin. But she didn't want to see Robin die in Bai Yi's hands. Suddenly an idea flashed through Vivi's mind. Bai Yi, will you let Robin join your night organization? She happens to be able to understand the historical text, which is a rare talent in the sea. Your organization definitely needs people like this, right? Quote ? Let Robin join the night. It's not that I didn't have this idea before Bai Yi, it just didn't feel like it made much sense. However, now it seems that the system can recycle the historical text. In addition to devil fruits, the things to collect after Byakuya also include historical texts. It doesn't seem like a bad thing to have one more person in the organization who can read the text of history. And Bai Yi didn't have any bad feelings towards Robin. It's not that Vivi's words cannot be considered. Bai Yi said, what Vivi said makes sense, and you also saved Vivi's life. I now sincerely invite you to join the night organization. Robin was prepared to be eliminated. But she didn't expect that Bai Yi would actually invite her to join the Yi organization. And Vivi also persuaded her, Sister Robin, just agree. Compared with the Baroque working society, the night organization is definitely more formal. Hearing this, Bai Yi couldn't help but rolled his eyes. What do you mean by being more formal? If someone told me that this organization is formal, I would not agree to go. I just like informal things. Robin didn't think about it for too long. After all, this was a matter of life and death for her. She didn't know if Bai Yi would suddenly change his mind. However, before joining, Robin still had a question to ask Bai Yi. Actually, I've always been curious as to what your purpose as Marine Major General was in forming the night organization. Of course, if it's inconvenient, you can choose not to answer. Bai Yi smiled and said, what's so inconvenient about this? I have told this issue to everyone who has joined the night organization. The goal of our night organization is world peace. Quote. World peace. Robin was stunned. Vivi was also stunned. No matter how great these 4 words sound, they are so nonsense. Robin asked, are you serious? After you joined the night organization, didn't you become aware of it? In that case, then I will join the night organization to see how to achieve world peace. After settling the matter in Alabasta Kingdom, Byakuya needs to return to the capital of 7 waters. At this moment, more than half of his vacation has passed and he can no longer stay. Although Vivi is very reluctant to leave Bai Yi, she will not stop Bai Yi's footsteps. But before Bai Yi left, he kept reminding Bai Yi that he must come to her when she turns 16. For Cobra, they just thought Vivi wanted Yi to celebrate her 16th birthday. But only Bai Yi, Vivi and Robin know the deeper meaning. In the White Night, the 4 of them took a boat to the capital of 7 waters and gradually moved away from the kingdom of Alabasta. At this time, Bai Yi also received a prompt from the system. Congratulations to host for changing the plot, Alabasta incident, Crocodile's death, etc., for gaining a total of 15,000 world source power points. This trip to the Alabasta kingdom was really profitable. Open the system in the White Night. Host. Bai. Template. One Punch Man, Saitama. Fusion degree, 30%. World source power, 48,000. Fusion degree 30% 31%, requires world source power, 2,100. Special skills. Imperial Engine. Armed Color Hockey LV8, Special Skill, Flowing Sakura. Seeing and Hearing Domineering LV8. Swordsmanship LV9+. Unlimited Recovery Passive. Sonic Ninja. 1,000 points summoned. Bai Yi followed the old rules and directly increased the fusion degree by 10%. 25,500 points of world source power were spent, leaving 22,500 points of world source power. In addition to doubling its own strength this time, the degree of integration has been improved. Even when extracting special abilities, it brought Bai Yi an unexpected surprise. The extraction is completed. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the dragon-level monster, the ability of Goryu Ganshupu, and the power of telekinesis telekinetic flow stone wave. Although it was also the telekinesis that Byakuya had dreamed of, it was not that of the S-class hero Tatsumaki, but that of Goryu Ganshup. Bai still remembers part of the information about Goryu Ganshup. As one of the 3 most senior combatants of the space dark matter pirates, Goryu Ganshup. And he calls himself the #1 telepathic master in the universe. The telekinesis shown in the animation is strong enough to affect gravity. It's just that no matter how fancy he is, in front of Saitama, he will be defeated with one punch. According to the systematic explanation, although both Goryu Ganshupu and Tatsumaki are strong telepathic powerhouses, their hemilateral directions are different. The power of the tornado's telekinesis is more powerful, but it is not good at manipulating objects, and the objects controlled by telekinesis are not fast. But Gelyugan Shopu is different. Although his telekinesis power is not as good as that of Tornado. But he can eliminate the friction between the air and the stone, causing the stone to fly over at sublight speed. Think of Kizaru's famous saying, "Speed is power." Just think about how powerful the stones controlled by Goryu Ganshupu are. At the same time, Bai also had a terrifying thought. If the tornado and the telekinesis of Goryu Ganshupu were combined, wouldn't the scene be picturesque? However, this idea is destined to be impossible to realize now. After all, Bai's current world source power is not enough to support him to increase his integration level by another 10 points. Even if it is improved, the ability drawn may not be the telekinesis of the tornado. The telekinesis power of Goryu Ganshupu alone is enough for Bai to use. Open the Special Skills column, Special Skills, Telekinesis, Full. Very conspicuous among them, it can be seen that the title of the first Thought Power Master in the universe does not have much water. Although Bai could now raise the 2-color domineering level to the full level, he did not do so. After all, throughout the history of the sea, there are only 1 or 2 people who can raise the 2-color domineering to the full level. If Bai, a boy not yet 19 years old, could do it, it's better to stay in the battle and secretly increase your domineering level. This can not only deceive others, but also deceive the enemy. After Bai closed the system panel, he enthusiastically used the telekinesis he had just obtained. However, after manipulating several objects, Bai discovered that it seemed that only by manipulating objects the size of pebbles could he maximize his telekinesis. Manipulating other items seems almost boring. So, Bai ordered hundreds of iron balls that were as big as half a fist in the small town he passed. In the next few days, Robin and the others discovered that Bai would play with 2 iron balls in his hands every day. Lucci boldly analyzed that Lord Bai was exercising his finger strength in this way, which could enhance the power of the finger gun. Bruno believed it, and even lamented loudly that Lord Bai was so powerful. Making full use of the short time on the road is really our goal. So, the 2 of them also started to pretend to play with 2 iron balls. It's just that the 2 people's seemingly hard-working actions looked like 2 idiots in Bai's eyes. You think I play with the iron ball with my fingers, but in fact, Bai used telekinesis to move 2 iron balls quickly within the small range in his hand without touching each other. Use this to improve your telekinesis proficiency. But you too can use a hammer to play with the iron ball. At most, you can make the iron ball more rounded. In fact, Bai didn't want to use the iron ball, but wanted to use the sea tower stone as a pebble. In this way, no matter the degree of hardness, it can be greatly strengthened even when dealing with devil fruit users. Unfortunately, there are basically no sea tower stones in the towns in the first half of the Grand Line. Even if there is only a pitiful small piece, barely enough to create 2 pieces. Therefore, Bai could only give up and prepare to wait until he returns to the Sabayati Islands. Secretly purchase some sea-floor stones in the black market and build them. After several days of sailing, the supplies on the ship were basically consumed. We need to find a nearby island to purchase supplies. Bai didn't care about this at first, because it was the most normal thing during the voyage. I just heard Robin say that the island to be purchased is called Gaia Island. This made Bai feel energetic immediately. Well, it seems that the Yi organization is about to add new members. Moreover, he has to harvest the power of the world again. Bai subconsciously looked at the thick clouds in the sky and murmured, "This guy's character is too bad and needs a good beating to make him enter the night." On the empty island, Enel, who was sitting in the temple, felt a sense of malice inexplicably. Does anyone dare to think about this god? Enel said slightly angrily. The thunder and lightning all over his body flickered, accompanied by the thunder and lightning exploding over the empty island. It was like a divine punishment coming, frightening tens of thousands of residents on Angel Island. I thought it was another guy who was not afraid of death who had provoked God. Enel, on the other hand, sensed the thoughts of everyone on the island through the heart network, but did not notice anything was wrong. However, the sudden malice just now was so obvious that Enel felt a little palpitated when he recalled it. If they are not from Kongdao, are they from Qinghai? Thinking of this, Enel ordered, send the order and ask the 4 priests to strictly investigate the strangers appearing on the island, especially the outsiders from Qinghai. Once discovered, solve it directly on the spot. Quote, as Enel's order was issued, the empty island instantly became a state of martial law. For a time, everyone on Angel Island was in danger, fearing that they would provoke the god's guards at this time. And Bai Yi, who caused all this, was explaining to Lu Qi and the others what happened after they left. I'm going to go up there to find a companion for you and recruit someone to the organization. So, after you have replenished supplies on the island, if I haven't come back yet, just wait for me a little longer. After all, this new companion is not weak in strength and has a bad temper. He doesn't know how long it will take to fight before he surrenders. Quote, I hope I won't be able to bring back only one corpse, otherwise it will be in vain. Listening to Yoruichi Bai saying such words with a calm face, Lucci and the 3 of them had different feelings in their hearts. Lucci and Bruno are both people who have been beaten by Yoruichi, and their ability to accept these words is not bad. Robin, who had just joined the organization, was obviously not used to Bai Yi's way of speaking. Aren't you looking for a new companion? Why use a punch? You also have to beat others until they give in. If they don't give in, you can only bring back a corpse. Is this really looking for a companion? Moreover, can this be said by a decent person? Recalling that before, Bai Yi told her that the goal of the Yi organization is world peace. Robin now felt that he understood these 4 words. As long as all the people who cause trouble in the world are killed, the world will naturally be peaceful. If Bai Yi knew what Robin was thinking, he would give her a thumbs up. As expected of you, you actually understood what I meant within just a few days of joining the organization. When the organization develops and grows, I will definitely make you the deputy team leader. Just when Bai Yi was about to leave, Lu Qi asked, Sir Bai Yi, you just said you were going to find your companions above. Bruno thought, is this companion a bird? Do I need to look for it in the sky? Apparently Bruno thought of the Morgans he had seen before. Bai Yoruichi looked helpless, he was speechless to these 2 illiterate people. Robin was moved and said, Bai Yi, when you say above, do you mean Sky Island? That's right, it's an empty island. It seems that having multiple cultural people in an organization can indeed be a lot more convenient. Bai Yi turned to Lucci and Bruno and scolded. Look, they are all people who have joined Yi not long ago. You 2 can't read more books. Do you train hard to improve your strength? Instead of acting like an idiot here, spinning 2 iron balls in your hands, will this help your strength? With that said, Bai Yi took back the iron ball from the 2 men's hands and crushed it into powder. Although the 2 of them wanted to reply, we only learned from you when we saw you doing this. But reason kept reminding the 2 of them that if they dared to say one more word, they might end up like an iron ball. After Bai Yi scolded the 2 of them, he stood up and flew towards the sky. It's just different from the past. The moonwalk used before requires the legs to be constantly kicked in the air to provide reverse power. Now he doesn't need to move at all. He only needs to wrap his whole body with telekinesis to achieve flight. And in terms of speed, it is no less than using moonwalk, and even exceeds it. Lu Qi soon discovered the change in Bai Yi's flying method and was greatly shocked. Could it be that during this period of time, Lord Bai Yi's strength has improved a lot? Ha ha ha, it's so cool. Bai Yi exerted his telekinesis power to the extreme, and his whole body turned into a stream of light, rushing towards the clouds. The old woman from Amazon is the supervisor of Sky Island Gate of Heaven, and is responsible for collecting entry fees for Qinghai people to enter Sky Island. It's just that during this time, the situation has changed. I don't know why, but God suddenly issued a decree that anyone coming from Qinghai must inform the 4 priests. So her position of collecting fees at Heaven's Gate became important. Anyone coming from Qinghai must be watched at all times. But while the Amazonian mother-in-law was concentrating, a strong wind suddenly swept past at a very fast speed. There was even a clear trace left in the sea of clouds. Hey, why did the wind blow suddenly? The Amazon mother-in-law looked at the blown clouds in surprise. Coming to the Sky Island, Bai Yi naturally knew Enel's ability. Combining the ability of the Thunder Fruit with the domineering power of knowledge, he could cover the entire Sky Island. Use this to monitor people's speech. Bai Yi was already prepared for this, and also released the domineering energy around his body, interfering with Enel's inner network. In this way, Enel naturally has no way of sensing Bai Yi's whereabouts. The Sky Island is located at an altitude of more than 10,000 meters, and the air is very thin. If ordinary people came here, they would probably enter a state of hypoxia, resulting in weakness in their limbs and greatly reduced strength. But for Bai Yi, he didn't feel the slightest discomfort. After all, Saitama can fight in space without air. And Bai Yi is now almost holding up half of Saitama. Being in a place with thin oxygen is exactly the same experience as being in Qinghai. Bai Yi relies on the vague memories left in his mind. It was judged that the right side should be Angel Island, where the residents of Sky Island lived. On the left, there should be Enel's Palace of Gods. Bai Yi didn't waste any time and galloped directly in the confirmed direction. At this time, Enel was still thinking about why there was no progress in the search these days. But the uneasiness in my heart became more and more intense. However, Enel then thought about it and realized that he was a god and his strength was invincible. Even if someone really wants to cause trouble, he can electrocute them into a ball of coke. Why worry? After thinking about this, Enel instantly felt in a good mood, and he seemed to be able to eat 2 more bowls at lunch. Just when Enel was about to ask the chef to cook more food for lunch, the closed door of the palace suddenly disappeared before his eyes. A mysterious man wearing a black robe and a mask appeared at the door, and he kept chanting. What a waste of money. He uses gold to repair doors and make furniture. He doesn't know how to save at all. You must know that Bai Yi did not hesitate to conquer the CP9 feet in order to save hundreds of millions of baileys in ship repair costs. He also kidnapped brothers Bingshan and Frankie and scared them both. This achieves the purpose of saving money. But now that Enel is using gold worth more than 1 billion belly to build furniture, how can he bear it? As long as it is related to gold, everything will be received in the system space. When we return to the Sabayati Islands, the gold will definitely be exchanged for a large amount of Bailey. Enel looked at the mysterious man who suddenly appeared in front of him and was shocked. These people all arrived in front of their palace, but Xinhuang didn't respond at all. Ever since Enel developed the hard network, which was all he had been doing for so many years, it was the first time I discovered that the hard network would actually fail. But before Enel could take a closer look at the mysterious man in front of him, he saw that the gold furniture carefully crafted by his men disappeared one by one. In the blink of an eye, all the seats in the Palace of Gods except the seat Enel was sitting on were taken away by the mysterious person. Who are you? How dare you break into this god's palace? How can Enel endure this? Enel swung out the long golden stick in his hand, and a dark purple thunder and lightning flashed like a thunder dragon with its teeth and claws, making a harsh thunderous sound, flying towards the white knight. But Bai Yi didn't pay attention to Enel's attack at all, and waved his right hand as casually as if he was driving away flies. The powerful-looking brontosaurus disappeared in the air instantly. Enel frowned. The guy in front of him was very powerful. Just when Enel was about to ask the mysterious person why he came, he suddenly heard the mysterious person say, I didn't expect that the entire palace is made of gold. It seems that I have no choice but to take it all away. My lair is going to be served to me. What a silly question. Only fight. Enel was angered by Bai Yi's behavior of treating him like nothing. There was no intention of leaving the other party alone for questioning. There is only one thought in his mind, which is to instantly turn the opponent into coke. Enel shouted in a low voice, 60 million volts of brontosaurus. The long golden stick in his hand struck the taiko drums on both shoulders hard, and seemingly endless thunder and lightning appeared from the taiko drums. The thunder and lightning generated in the two places merged together to form a thunder dragon hundreds of meters high, circling in the palace. The appearance of the thunder dragon instantly filled half of the palace, rendering the palace as bright as daylight, making it impossible for people to look directly at it. The thunder dragon, which contained terrifying power, rushed towards Bai Yi with its teeth and claws. The thunder and lightning exploded from its body fell on the ground, directly blasting a crater in the ground. The huge heat generated by the extremely strong lightning instantly turned the gold on the ground into a liquid state. Seeing this scene, Bai Yi couldn't help but be curious. How on earth could Luffy defeat Enel, the user with the Thunder Fruit ability, without being Haki? You said that rubber does not conduct electricity. This is common sense and everyone can understand it. However, the heat generated by lightning at high altitudes is unbearable for rubber. But this is not reflected in the original anime. After thinking about it, Bai Yi could only attribute it to the halo of the protagonist. As Bai Yi thought, two black lights suddenly flashed across his body. I saw those two black lights constantly traveling through the body of the Thunder Dragon. The Brontosaurus was torn to pieces in almost the blink of an eye. These two black lights are the only two stones on Bai Yi's body that are made of Sea Tower stone. The reason why iron balls are not used is, this is because Enel, as a user with the Thunder Fruit ability, releases thunder and lightning that will produce strong magnetic force and affect the iron ball. And Bai Yi was too lazy to cover the iron ball with armed domineering, so he directly used the black ball made of seafloor stone. Enel was surprised to see the Brontosaurus being torn into pieces and the two black balls hovering in front of his eyes. He didn't expect that he would use his strongest move. How could it be cracked so easily by the other party? However, although Enel lamented the power of the mysterious man, he did not have any fear of the mysterious man in his heart. Because he knew that ordinary attacks like this would have no way of hitting him. So he is in an invincible position. How can there be fear? Enel raised his neck and said arrogantly, since you can defeat my god's Thunder Dragon, it proves that your strength is not weak. This god can make you the head of my priests, you just need to obey my orders. If you don't know how to praise, you will end up being electrocuted into a ball of coke by this god. Bai Yi was stunned when he heard Enel's arrogant words. Good guy, this is taking away my lines. I came to Kongdao to be your subordinate, not to be your subordinate. The current Enel is far from the Enel Luffy met a year later. The strength is much weaker. Bai Yi feels that she has an obligation to let Enel recognize herself. Understand the situation he is in now. Bai Yi sneered, then I'll give you two choices. Either become my subordinate, or be beaten to death by me, you can choose either one. Quote. As soon as he finished speaking, the two black balls turned into two black streams of light and attacked Enel. Facing the attack, Enel did not dodge or dodge, he just stood there and chose to attack hard. Bai Yi was shocked by Enel's actions. Good guy, does this guy deserve a beating? He actually didn't even hide. In order to avoid killing Enel all at once, the black ball controlled by Bai Yi did not go towards his vitals. But Bai Yi didn't know that Enel didn't hide, but that he didn't have time to hide. The speed of the black ball is close to the sublight speed, and ordinary people's consciousness cannot keep up. And since meeting Bai Yi, Enel's proud inner network has completely lost its function. There was no way to sense Bai Yi's attack. And with Enel having been on the empty island for so many years, he has zero combat experience. The first time I encountered this situation, I didn't know what to do. So he could only stand there stupidly and let Bai Yi attack. However, Enel did not worry too much about this because he knew that his body was different from ordinary people and he did not need to be afraid of such ordinary attacks. But when the black ball came into contact with Enel's body, Enel's expression instantly became panicked. Two black balls instantly penetrated both sides of Enel's shoulders, bringing out scarlet blood and several pale bones. He also pierced through the three drums behind him that cooperated with his ability. Enel opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood, and said in disbelief, how could this happen? Under the mask, Bai Yi looked at Enel's silly appearance and couldn't help but sigh. Do you really need to recruit someone like this into the organization? However, even if Enel doesn't agree, killing him will change the plot and gain a lot of world power. Moreover, Gold can be seen everywhere in the palace of God, which can be exchanged for a large amount of Bailey, which can be used to purchase devil fruits. In addition, there seems to be a piece of historical text on the empty island, which can be exchanged for world source power. In this way, this trip to the empty island is not a loss at all. Bai Yi stood still and said calmly, "How about it? Have you considered it clearly? Should you become my subordinate or die?" The two black balls hovered in front of Enel again. Enel said angrily, "How could I be someone else's subordinate?" As he spoke, he released a large amount of thunder and lightning in his hands, trying to attack Bai Yi. Unfortunately, the moment the lightning flashed in his hand, two black balls instantly pierced his palm. In addition to the pain, Enel also clearly felt a sense of weakness throughout his body. This is the effect that the Sea Tower Stone has on devil fruit users. Enel gritted his teeth and tried to activate the lightning again, but the fruit's ability seemed to have failed. It can't be used at all. After losing his fruit ability, Enel became an ordinary person. Bai Yi continued, "I ask again, surrender or death." This was the first time Enel felt the danger of death so clearly after getting the fruit's ability. Given Enel's arrogant character, he is naturally unwilling to surrender. But he also understood that the only consequence for not surrendering was death. In the face of death, Enel becomes wavering between the arrogance he has developed over the years and the threat of death. He must make his own choice between the two. Just when Bai Yi was getting impatient with waiting, the two black balls in front of Enel were about to move. Enel suddenly asked, "What good will it do me to choose to surrender to you? Oh, you are an old arrogant person when you open your mouth." Seeing Enel's desperate look, Bai Yi instantly understood what Enel was thinking. This guy didn't want to die, but because of his arrogance, he was unwilling to speak out and choose to surrender. That's why I asked half-heartedly what are the benefits of surrender. Bai Yi didn't expose Enel's little idea, and said with a half-smile. Surrendering to me will naturally bring many benefits. First of all, you can save your life. Secondly, I can make you stronger. Finally, I won't stop you from challenging me when you become stronger. On the contrary, I really hope that day will come. Bai Yi naturally has his own way of dealing with Tsunere. After saying that, without giving Enel any more time to think, he threw him the black robe that represented his identity. Since you chose to join the Yi organization, I will keep this palace for you. But you still need to take me somewhere. Under the leadership of Enel, Bai Yi found the historical text. Discovered recyclable items. Historical text, recycling price, 1,000 points of world source power. Question mark question mark question mark. Shouldn't it be 3,000 points of world source power? After comparing, Bai Yi discovered the difference. The historical text in the Kingdom of Alabasta is an information text. Therefore, the value is slightly higher, which is 3,000 points of world source power. Moreover, the historical text in front of me only records some trivial information. So the value is not that high. It's 1,000 points of world source power. But Bai Yi didn't dislike it. No matter how small a mosquito is, it is still meat. And it's not too small. Open your hand to store the historical text into the system space. Bai Yi did not choose to recycle it in the first place. Instead, he planned to return to Qinghai to read it to Robin before recycling it. It won't waste much time, and you can still gain Robin's loyalty, so why not do it? Congratulations to host for changing the plots of Luffy vs. Enel, Priest Trial, etc., and gaining a total of 5,000 points of world source power. Although it is only 1/3 of Alabasta's time harvest. But Bai Yi did not feel unsatisfied. After all, he didn't kill anyone on the empty island, he just subdued Enel, so the change to the plot was really not that big. And it only took half a day. Bai Yi wished that things like this could happen more often. And in Bai Yi's imagination, Sky Island may become the base of the Yi organization. Because Sky Island is hidden enough and very few people know about its existence. So it's perfect for a secret base. After finishing everything, Bai Yi was ready to leave Sky Island. But he didn't take Enel with him. Instead, Enel was allowed to continue to stay on Sky Island and maintain his rule over Sky Island. Other members of Yi may come to Sky Island after a while, and when the time comes, they will teach you how to use hockey. Domineering. This is the first time Enel has heard this name. Bai Yi explained, it is what you call the hard net. In Qinghai, it is generally called the hockey of seeing and hearing, which can sense the enemy's attack. Enel asked in surprise, is Xinhuang very popular in Qinghai? Well, the hard network is not popular because it is formed by combining the hockey of wisdom and color and the thunder fruit. Then do you know Xinhuang? Bai Yi shook his head. Seeing Bai Yi shaking his head, Enel showed a proud smile. It seemed that although Bai Yi was strong, he was still not as good as himself in some aspects. Seeing Enel's proud look, Bai Yi didn't say much. Let your children have more self-confidence. Although Bai Yi didn't know what skills would be triggered by raising the hockey of knowledge to the full level. But as long as it is triggered, its effect must be no less than the hard network. As long as he wants to, he can improve in an instant. For him, this was just a thought. Bai Yi continued, the thunder fruit you took is a Logia devil fruit, and ordinary attacks will have no effect on you. But those two terrifying black balls appeared in Enel's mind, and even now, his shoulders and palms still feel a dull pain. Bai Yi knew what Enel wanted to ask. But the Logia fruit is not completely invincible. There are two most common methods that can attack you. The first type is the domineering power I mentioned. You only need to cultivate your domineering power to the point where you can break through the skin. It can cause damage to Logia users. Quote, the second method is the method I use, because devil fruit users cannot touch the sea. As the most essential crystal of the sea floor stone will make a person with abilities powerless if it touches it. Quote, so, when you go to Qinghai in the future, you will meet many people who can cause harm to you. If you still hold on to the idea that you are an invincible god, you will be beaten to death sooner or later. Hearing Bai Yi's words, Enel not only did not feel afraid, but instead felt a trace of long-lost enthusiasm. During these years of controlling Sky Island, invincible was too lonely for him. But now, whether it is Bai Yi who easily defeated him in front of him. It was also what Bai Yi mentioned, the many strong men in Qinghai who could cause harm to him. For him, it is a challenge. Of course, in order of difficulty, Bai Yi is naturally placed at the end, regarded as the big boss to clear the level. The members of the Night organization who come up will wear these clothes and they will be easily identifiable. Bai Yi pointed to the clothes on his body and said, their strength may not be as good as yours, but they are indeed beyond your reach in other aspects. So, when they come up, if you dare to take action against them, I will kill you directly. Quote, Bai Yi didn't say such words for no reason. After all, with Enel's current strength, it is estimated that only Lu Qi can compete with him. The others are much weaker than Enel. If, without talking to Enel first, it will be clear. If he really killed Robin and others, wouldn't it be even worse? It's better to say something ugly in front of others to avoid this happening. Facing Bai Yi's threat, Enel didn't take it seriously and smiled. Don't worry, I have no interest in weak people. Bai Yi nodded and said, that's good. I hope you can become strong enough next time we meet. I will defeat you one day. Enel said, looking at Bai Yi's leaving figure. Although he joined the Yi organization today under Bai Yi's coercion, this is not a bad thing for Enel himself. At the very least, he saw a way to make himself stronger. After returning below, Bai Yi quickly found Lu Qi and the others. They had already replenished their supplies and set off directly towards the capital of Seven Waters. Robin asked Bai Yi curiously, did the recruitment of members go smoothly this time? Bai Yi smiled and said, it went smoothly, just by piercing his shoulders and hands, he was willing to join the organization. Much better than I expected. Quote. Everyone was silent. Bai Yi was indeed right. He had expected to come back with a corpse. In comparison, it is indeed much better. Having said this, Bai Yi took out the historical text from the system space and placed it in front of Robin. First of all, let me tell you that this historical text can be borrowed from you. You'd better write down the information recorded on it. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that you will be able to see it again in the future. From Bai Yi's words, Robin could tell that Bai Yi seemed to need the historical text very much and had the means to destroy the historical text. Come to think of it, the historical text recording the information about Pluton has probably been used by Bai Yi. However, Robin was not as angry as he imagined. Instead, he bowed to Bai Yi gratefully. Because she knew that if it weren't for Bai Yi, but with her own strength, I'm afraid I won't be able to see a piece of historical text in this life. Moreover, after Bai Yi found the historical text, he did not use it immediately. Instead, he brought the historical text back and asked her to record it first. Therefore, Robin was even more grateful for Bai Yi's behavior. As long as the history recorded above can be disseminated, the importance of the historical text will not be that great. Bai Yi looked at Robin in surprise and said nothing more. The journey back was much easier than when we came here, and we soon arrived near the capital of Seven Waters. But before returning to the Seven Waters capital, Bai Yi contacted Morgans again through Newsbird to meet on Gon Island. After all, the information about Crocodile in Hand still needs to be disseminated through Morgans. In fact, when Bai Yi and others left the Alabasta Kingdom, the news of the death of one of the Shichibukai, Sand Crocodile, spread across the sea at an extremely fast speed. This is undoubtedly the most eye-catching news in recent times. But no eyewitnesses found out who did it. So everyone on the sea was guessing at the hands of whom Crocodile died. Especially on the world government side, many spy organizations were sent to investigate this matter. After all, the person who died was a member of the Shichibukai, an official organization recognized by the world government. Crocodile's sudden death is undoubtedly a slap in the face of the world government. This is a serious challenge to the majesty of world government. Therefore, the world government immediately issued an order to find the murderer in the shortest possible time and catch the murderer. Even Marine was dispatched for this purpose. It is said that Lieutenant General Mole, the Marine Headquarters Lieutenant General, personally went to the Kingdom of Alabasta to investigate the situation. When Morgans heard the news, his first reaction was that Yi had succeeded. But he didn't expect that Yi would be so fast. Now no one in the entire sea knows who the murderer is. And he knew it. This feeling fascinated Morgans. If he hadn't still been thinking about the more important information about Crocodile in Yi's hands, he couldn't wait to spread the news that Yi was the murderer now. There is no way, as the president of the news agency, he calls collecting information more important than life. And disseminating information is just as important as gathering it. Naturally, one can imagine how difficult it is for him to endure the news until now. Morgans now anxiously awaits the information brought back by the news bird every day. Until this day, the news bird flew back with the 3-word message of Gaia Island. At this moment, the excited light in Morgan's eyes almost solidified. Without any hesitation, he hurried to Gaia Island with some of his men. Gaia Island. When Morgan saw Bai Yi, he wanted to hold Bai Yi in his arms and kiss him a few times. For him, he likes people who are doing things on the sea the most. And what made him like it even more was that the troublemaker only provided the information to him. He alone spreads it. If it weren't for the fear of Bai Yi disapproving, he almost wanted to kneel down and kowtow to Bai Yi and call him daddy. Bai Yi glanced at Morgans with some disgust, took out the image phone bug from his arms and threw it to Morgans. I hope to see the above information published in the newspaper tomorrow morning. Morgans turned on the video phone bug and just briefly looked at the recorded video. This sight almost made Morgans so excited that he died suddenly. Big news. This is really big news. Who would have thought that the Shichibukai recognized by the government would actually do such a thing in the Alabasta Kingdom, a member country? Especially now that the world government doesn't know the murderer yet, it is ready to find out the murderer and make him pay the price for killing Crocodile. Once this news spreads, it will be equivalent to giving the world government another slap in the face. Such a thing will definitely cause all the participating countries to panic about Shichibukai. It is conceivable that the world government will bear huge pressure from public opinion. But what does any of this have to do with me, Morgans? I'm just a happy news bird delivering the news. Just a request for Bai Yi. Morgans said with some difficulty. It is indeed difficult to see this news tomorrow morning. Bai Yi snorted softly. If you can't do it, I will find someone else to cooperate. Morgans said anxiously. No, even we can't meet this requirement, and it will only be harder for other forces to meet it. It's just that I have an idea. Simply using words to publish this information does not have enough credibility. It is better to copy tens of thousands of copies of this image and sell it with newspapers. The impact is definitely much greater than just a newspaper. But this is time-consuming, probably about 3 days. Don't worry, once the copy is completed, I will immediately sell it all over the sea. Quote. Morgans was afraid that the big customer, Yi, would run away, so he quickly told everything about his thoughts. After Bai Yi heard Morgan's idea, he couldn't help but sigh. He was worthy of being a journalist. The thought is indeed far-reaching enough. Okay, just do as you say. Seeing Bai Yi nodding, Morgans smiled even more. After the transaction was completed, Morgans left in a hurry, looking like he was ready to do something big. Bai Yi returned to the capital of Seven Waters alone. Let Robin follow Lucci and others into hiding first. When Bai Yi arrived at the first dock, he saw Bingshan and Frankie arguing over the construction of the hull. The topic the two were arguing about was whether more weapons needed to be built on Bai Yi's ship. For weapons expert Frankie, he wanted to build all kinds of cannons on the ship from beginning to end. Bingshan believed that with Bai Yi's strength, the weapons built on the ship would be of little use and would occupy a lot of space. The two were extremely focused when they were arguing and didn't even care about Bai Yi's arrival. After listening to the argument between the two, Bai Yi suddenly said, I think what Bingshan said makes sense. There is really no need to build so many cannons on the ship. With these spaces, it is better to find ways to make them more comfortable. After hearing Bai Yi's voice, the two of them noticed Bai Yi. But when Frankie saw Bai Yi supporting brother Bingshan's idea, his expression darkened a lot. Bai Yi continued, of course, the ship still needs a very powerful main gun. As long as you still need Frankie, who is a weapons expert, please worry. Now Frankie's face showed joy and he shouted, leave it to me. And Bingshan smiled when he saw Frankie's childlike appearance. At this time, Bai Yi suddenly thought of something and asked, by the way, can the energy source of the main gun be set to electricity or something? For example, the energy source of Luffy's Wanli Sunshine is Fat House Happy Water. Each shot requires several buckets of Fat Mansion Happy Water. It made Bai Yi feel very sad to see it. Bai Yi's favorite drink is Feijai Happy Water. You need to drink this stuff to get real happiness. In addition, Enel, who has just been conquered, happens to be a user with the Thunder Fruit ability. It can completely function as a power bank. That's why he suddenly made this request. Frankie briefly thought about the feasibility of the plan and hesitated. It is indeed possible to set it to electricity, but are you really sure you don't want to use coke? Coke is a good energy source. Bai Yi said firmly, no need for coke, just electricity. All right. Faced with Bai Yi's persistence, Frankie would naturally not try to dissuade him. After all, the owner of this ship was Bai Yi. At this moment, Kuike, who learned that Bai Yi had returned to the first dock, found Bai Yi with a serious look on his face. Major General Bai Yi, Warring States Fleet Admiral is calling to find you. Warring States Fleet Admiral, I'm on vacation, why do you want me to work? This old guy doesn't want to ask me to work overtime again. Hearing Bai Yi's casual words, both Bingshan and Frankie broke into a cold sweat. Good guy, this man in front of me doesn't even pay attention to Marine Fleet Admiral Sengoku. And quick was obviously used to what Bai Yi said. I heard that there is something important that I need to inform you about. Bai Yi waved his hand impatiently, if you don't answer, just say I'm still out training and haven't come back. Training outside was Bai Yi's excuse for leaving the capital of Seven Waters. Well, this man is really tough. Bingshan and Frankie were completely convinced. Quick said with a painful look on his face, but, after I learned about your return, I already informed Warring States Fleet Admiral. If I say this again, Warring States Fleet Admiral will kill me before you come back. Bai Yi said indifferently, then I'll kill you. What does it have to do with me? Quick, a strong man over 2 meters tall, sat directly on the ground, crying bitterly with runny nose and tears. Major General Bai Yi, we were classmates when we were in the training camp. After I came out, I have been working under your hands for almost a year now. You can't do this. At this time, Quick was in grief, with tears streaming down his face. How miserable it must have been. Even Bingshan and Frankie on the side were moved by Quick's appearance. Think of a strong man over 2 meters crying like a child in front of you. Different emotions will arise in everyone's heart. Byakuya-sama, just answer the call from Sengoku Fleet Admiral. Yes, Lord Bai, Please forgive quick. It's not easy for you to see him either. Bingshan and Frankie persuaded from the side. More and more boatmen from the surrounding areas gathered around him. If this continued, Marine would be humiliated by Quaker. Bai Yi said helplessly, okay, give me the phone and I'll call Warring States Fleet Admiral right now. Hearing Bai Yi's agreement, Kuike jumped up from the ground and took out the phone bug from his arms and handed it to Bai Yi. There is no sadness or pain like before. After Bai Yi took the phone, he left the first dock and returned to the warship to make a call. Bingshan and Frankie unanimously gave Quick a thumbs up and praised. Brother, your acting skills are really amazing. Bingshan thought to himself, the thickness of his face is also incredible. Quick patted the dirt on his body and said nonchalantly, there is nothing we can do about it. Major General Bai Yi will take the easy way rather than the hard way. In order to continue to stay in Marine, I can only make this decision. At this time, Bai Yi had already called Warring States. Hey, Warring States Fleet Admiral, why are you looking for me again during your vacation? Are you going to assign me another task? Faced with Bai Yi's complaints, Warring States felt accustomed to it, and Quan pretended not to hear it. I'm looking for you this time because I need to tell you two things. The first thing was that Jack was kidnapped by the Beast Pirates on the way to Impel Down City. Quote, robbed, Warring States said in a serious tone. Yes, this time it was Kaido himself who took action this time, and the remaining two major signs were also there. General Kizaru could not resist so many people by himself, so he could only watch Jack being kidnapped by Kaido. Moreover, one of the two Marine headquarters lieutenant generals who were in charge of the escort was killed and the other injured. Quote, hearing this, Bai Yi took a deep breath. He didn't expect that Jack would break out into such a serious matter. The Lieutenant General of Marine Headquarters is the most popular member of the Marine Corps and has suffered very few casualties over the years. Unexpectedly, this time he fell into the hands of the Beast Pirates, resulting in the tragic result of one death and one injury. It is estimated that during this period, Marine will have to focus on taking care of the Beast Pirates. While Bai Yi was thinking, Warring States paused and continued, the second news is good news for you. Good news. Yes, your proposal to be promoted to Marine Lieutenant General has been approved. After your leave is over, you can come to the headquarters to receive the award. This is indeed good news, but there is no joy at all from the Warring States period. I think it is precisely because of the Marine Headquarters Lieutenant General who was killed and injured. Only Bai Yi could be promoted so smoothly. I hope you won't live up to my expectations of you. After all, I have to shoulder a lot of pressure for you, who is so young, to become the Marine Headquarters Lieutenant General. Quote, Uncle Sengoku, don't worry, I will definitely try to capture Kaido. Forget it, pretend I didn't say it, you'd better cause less trouble. When Bai Yi returned to the capital of Seven Waters, the construction of the ship was almost complete. Moreover, Lu Qi, one of the 5 foremen who was recovering from injury, also participated in the creation. This can be regarded as bringing Lu Qi's role to the extreme. This made the progress much faster again. Bai Yi has not stayed in the Seven Waters capital for a few days. Bingshan and Frankie happily found Bai Yi. Bingshan said with a happy face, Major General Bai Yi, the ship you requested has been built, and now it's time to go for acceptance. Frankie patted his chest and said, I guarantee that when you see that ship, you will be shocked by its perfection. When he heard that the ship was built, Bai Yi instantly became interested and followed the two of them to the first dock. As soon as I came in, I saw a brand new ship docked at the pier. Bingshan introduced at the side, this ship fully utilizes the treasure tree, Atom, which is 177 meters long and 87 meters high. Compared with Marine Standard warships, it is only slightly larger and is divided into 3 floors. Quote, on the first floor, part of it is the canteen, and the other part is a leisure and entertainment place. Some of the remaining rooms can be used as storage rooms or holding rooms. Bingshan took into account Bai Yi Marine's status and would inevitably catch pirates during the voyage, so the existence of the holding room was very necessary. The second floor is the soldiers' lounge, with a total of 217 rooms, each of which is spacious enough. As for the third floor, it is your single lounge, and an outdoor swimming pool is built next to it. If the weather is bad, you can activate the button to close the swimming pool. With that said, Bingshan pressed a button in Bai Yi's room, and saw semicircular iron covers extending from both sides of the swimming pool, which were combined to seal the top of the swimming pool. Bai Yi looked at the swimming pool in front of him, his eyes almost shining. This is really what I want. From now on, sailing can be regarded as a long trip. Bai Yi suddenly began to think about the possibility of having a pool party on the boat. At that time, only beauties wearing bikinis will be allowed to enter, wouldn't that be great? Thinking about it, Bai Yi gradually pictured Dasky and Ain wearing bikinis and playing in the swimming pool. And he was lying on the side under the parasol, drinking Fajai happy water and watching the beautiful woman taking a bath. Just thinking about it made Bai Yi feel excited. Very good, I'm very satisfied with the boat you built. Bai Yi patted Bingshan on the shoulder and praised. And Bingshan was also very happy to receive Bai Yi's affirmation. After all, no matter how satisfied they shipbuilders are with their work, the ultimate goal is to satisfy the owner of the boat. Frankie was equally happy and said, since you are also satisfied, then it's settled. But now it still needs a name. Each ship will have its own unique name. This needs to be picked up by the boat owner in person. The name of the ship. Bai Yi thought for a while and then came up with an idea and said, since it is my ship, Bai Yi, why not call it Jizhou? Gigi. Bingshan and Frankie felt puzzled. This name seemed quite satisfactory and there was nothing outstanding about it. However, this is what Bai Yi wants to take, and they won't talk too much. When Bai Yi looked at the Jizhou, he suddenly felt a lot of emotion. He chose this name, which naturally has a meaning. Polar day, also known as eternal day or midnight sun, refers to the phenomenon that the sun is above the horizon within a day. It means that you are in a state of light every moment. This is consistent with Byakuya Marine's identity, and they all belong to the side of justice and light. Moreover, it is related to the first character of Bai Yi, Bai. It is the same as the origin of the night organization, both derived from the name. It's just that one is on the surface and the other is secretly. Bai Yi's ambition can be sensed from the name of this ship. Wherever the polar day horn goes, the light will definitely shine. It's just that others can't think from Bai Yi's perspective, so naturally they can't think of so many things. Just as Bai Yi was admiring the GG, a warship came in from the first dockyard again. Judging from its appearance, it should be a warship belonging to the world government. Lu Qi and Kaku, who were working in the first dock, glanced at each other secretly, with a bad premonition emerging in their hearts. Perhaps this ship is the person sent by the world government to investigate the matter of CP9. Because agents like them who perform latent missions and other identities. Only their superiors know the exact identities they hide. In other words, Spandam knew their specific identities. But now Spangdam was dead in their hands. So they are not afraid of being recognized by people sent by the world government at the first opportunity. However, in order to prevent this from happening, the world government, before they carry out their mission, each person leaves a part of their life card in the world government. This means that as long as they cannot be found based on the life card, it is confirmed that they have betrayed. So no matter how far they go, they will be hunted down by the world government. This was also what Lu Qi and the others were most worried about before. Now it seems that the scenario they were worried about is about to become a reality, and the situation has become serious. It may be that world government warships are used to being arrogant on the road, and anyone who sees their ship will give way. When they entered the first dock, they found at a glance that the Jizhou was in the best position. Whether it is inspection and repair of ships or landing ashore, it is much better than other locations. So without even thinking about it, he directly drove the ship in the direction of the Jizhou. A man stood at the bow of the ship and asked loudly, "Whose ship is this? Drive away quickly, otherwise, I will sink this ship now." As he said that, all the cannons installed on the ship were aimed at the Jizhou. Looking at the panic expressions of the boatmen around him, the speaker seemed to have gained great satisfaction and continued to speak arrogantly. "No one is talking, right? Then I will count down to 3. 1, fire." As soon as the words fell, more than 30 cannons fired at the GG. The sound of artillery fire resounded through the first dock, and more than 30 black shells drew a beautiful arc in the sky, accurately landing on the hull of the Jizhou. Theodore seemed to have seen the newly built brand new ship in front of him being blown into pieces. This is one of his bad habits, he likes to destroy seemingly perfect things. Whether it is a brand new ship that has just been built, a priceless piece of art, or a beautiful girl, they are all within the scope of his destruction. But before Theodore could get excited for too long, an extremely bright slash suddenly erupted in front of his eyes. The slash was like a waning moon. Just looking at it made my eyes sting and I couldn't help but shed tears. More than 30 black cannonballs were swept away by the slash and exploded in midair, like fireworks. The slash passed through the thick smoke generated by the explosion and swept unabated towards the world government warship where Theodore was located. "Sir, someone is attacking our ship," Theodore shouted in panic. And a white figure flashed out from the cabin, wearing a white suit and a black mask with a crying face. It was Ray-san from CP0 Feet whom Byakuya had met before. Looking at the speeding attack, a trace of fear flashed in Zero-san's eyes. This must be a powerful swordsman attack that can be executed with such power. The name, Eagle Eye, Mihawk instantly appeared in Ray-san's mind. After all, when the great swordsman is mentioned in the currency, 99% of people will think of Mihawk, the world's best swordsman. Suddenly, another figure appeared in Ling-san's mind. Thinking of that extremely cruel guy, Ling-san trembled. It can't be this guy, right? Before Zero-san had any more thoughts, that terrifying slash was already in front of him. Although Ray-san still has time to dodge, as soon as he dodges, the warship will be destroyed, and few people on the ship will survive. Armed Domineering covered his arms and crossed them on his chest. He wanted to take this move forcefully. But the moment he touched the slash, the expression on Ling-san's mask changed drastically. There is something wrong with the force of this slash. Ray-san flew upside down like catkins fluttering in the wind, his armed domineering spirit was broken, and 2 clear blood marks were cut out on his arms, sprinkling Madara's blood in the air. No, if this continues, everyone on the warship will die. This time, in order to facilitate his investigation, the world government asked Spandam to disappear. All the CP-8s closest to the Seven Waters capital were put under the control of Ray-san. If nothing is found through investigation and the entire CP-8 Feet army is wiped out, then all his efforts in rescuing Maple Cecil Palace some time ago would be in vain. Thinking of this, Ling-san risked his life and directly started to use the fruit ability of self-mutilation. Actively disarming Haki, the clothes and skin on his body were instantly cut apart by the sharp sword intent. The blood immediately stained the white suit red. At the same time, countless hard iron chains sprouted from the wounds on Zero-san's body, binding Zanjiao tightly like flexible snakes. The struggle between the chop and the iron chain made a harsh friction sound, making everyone around them look in agony. The slashes broke one chain after another. But every time one chain is broken, several chains will replace it. Regardless of the injury, Ray-san used the fruit's ability to its extreme. In the end, the slash was annihilated in the endless steel chain cage. Seeing this, Zero-san let out a long sigh of relief, and he was able to block it. With such a powerful slash, I think the opponent should be Mihawk, one of the Shichibukai. Although Mihawk is strong, 03 is not too afraid of him. After all, if Hawkeye wants to maintain his identity as Shichibukai, he can't be at odds with the world government. At that time, 03 took the initiative to explain that this was a misunderstanding, and almost dismissed Hawkeye. Theodore, who was hiding at the back, immediately rushed to the front when he saw the slash disappeared, came to Ray-san's side and said flatteringly. As expected of Master Ray-san, he can even take such a powerful slash. With your strength, even if you go to the Marine headquarters, becoming a Marine general is more than enough. Quote, although Ling-san has sufficient knowledge of his own strength, he can never be flattered by others. No one likes to be flattered by his subordinates. Especially when my subordinates took pictures in the right place. Ling-san endured the pain in his body and said disdainfully, this is nothing to me. I remember that back then, one of the 3 major signatures of the Beast Pirates, Drought, Jack, was also defeated by me. If it weren't for our spy organization, catching pirates wouldn't have much merit. Moreover, General Aokiji of Marine Headquarters was also present. Otherwise, I wouldn't give this credit to my fellow Marine. Quote, Theodore quickly echoed, so that's what it's like. I just said, how can a small Major General of Marine Headquarters defeat Jack Drought? Before Zero-san could continue to pretend, a familiar and ridiculing voice suddenly came from the other party. Hey, I said, who is so bold and dares to attack my ship? It turns out to be Mr. 03. Hearing this voice, Zero-san's heart trembled. He couldn't be so unlucky, could he? I was just pretending to be cool, and I happened to be hit by the real owner. When Ling-san saw Bai Yi appearing with Feng Ming, his heart stopped and his brain was in chaos at this moment. Ling-san prayed wildly in his heart, this guy didn't hear it. This guy didn't hear it. This guy didn't hear it. But in the next second, his prayers became meaningless. Bai Yi said in a strange tone, I would also like to thank Mr. Ling-san here. You are willing to give me the credit for defeating Jack. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been informed so quickly that I would be promoted to Marine Headquarters Lieutenant General. Quote. At this time, Ray-san's tone of voice was as sad as if his mother had died. Then I would like to congratulate Lieutenant General Bai Yi in advance. Theodore on the side had not yet heard the deeper meaning of the two people's words. He pointed at Bai Yi and said angrily, so you are the Major General Marine who took credit for Master Ray-san's work. As soon as Theodore opened his mouth, Ling-san knew something was wrong. Theodore said angrily, if it hadn't been for Mr. Zero-san, would you have become a Marine Headquarters Lieutenant General so quickly? Moreover, you just wanted to sink Lord Zero-san's warship. Are you really an ungrateful person? If you really sink the world government's ship, can you, a young Marine Major General, be able to shoulder this responsibility? In Theodore's words, the fact that he ordered the cannon to be fired on Bai's ship was completely eliminated. All the blame was placed on Bai Yi. Bai Yi glanced at Theodore indifferently, turned to Ling-san and asked, is this one of your men? Although Ray-san didn't have much contact with Bai Yi, they had worked together for a while. From Bai Yi's words, he seemed to hear the murderous intention contained in them. Other Marines may be afraid of their spy organizations, but this man in front of him is definitely not afraid. After all, he is very powerful, and he also has Uncle Fleet Admiral, the former chief instructor of Marine General. The background is definitely not something that ordinary people can shake. Even if he does something outrageous, he can only be punished verbally at most, and there won't be much punishment. So, he quickly denied it and said, this is Theodore, the chief of CP8. We are just here to investigate the affairs of the capital of Seven Waters. We are not my subordinates. Now, 03 is afraid that Bai Yi will associate him with Theodore. If they really attack him and chop him too, wouldn't he die unjustly? But Theodore didn't understand the meaning of 03's words. I thought Ling-san said this just to let Bai Yi know the dignity of his status, so he said that he was not his subordinate. As a good player in the officialdom, Theodore naturally knew that it was time for him to reciprocate the favor. Theodore held up his hands to Ling-san and smiled. Lord Ling-san is out of touch when he says that. Even if there is no order for this joint investigation, I, Theodore, am still willing to obey Master 03. Quote. Bai Yi turned the wind in his hand and made a crisp sword sound, and said with a smile, oh, so it seems that he is still your subordinate. The sound of the sword sounded, and Ling-san was trembling in his heart. Now Ling-san looked at Theodore, who was smiling in front of him and wanted to strangle him to death. Do you have to blame me for the trouble you caused yourself? You really want Lousy to die, right? Bai Yi looked at Ling-san, who looked like a bloody man, and said calmly, an arm or a leg, do you do it or do I do it? And Theodore asked stupidly, is an arm and a leg too cheap for him? Well, until now, he thought that the Major General Marine in front of him was talking about his fate. Ray-san now understands how deceitful this pig teammate is. If he hadn't been on a mission, 03 would have simply left Theodore to Bai Yi. After a moment of silence, Ling-san hesitated and said, his father is a high-level official in the government. Bai Yi replied, so, I only want an arm or a leg, but I don't want to kill him. After hearing this, Theodore realized belatedly that the person they were talking about was actually him. Is this, I sat up in shock when I was dying, and the clown turned out to be myself. Listening to the two people saying that the negotiation was about one of his arms or legs, Theodore felt that his whole body was weak, and he no longer lost the arrogance he had just now. It seemed that even Master Zero-san, whom he looked up to, couldn't protect himself in front of Major General Marine. Theodore looked at Lingson pitifully, but saw that Lingson didn't look at him at all. He could only focus on Bai Yi, but he did not choose to ask for mercy. Instead, he used his father's identity to blackmail Bai Yi. Theodore gritted his teeth and said, "My father works under the celestial dragons. If you attack me, once my father informs the celestial dragons about this, you will not end well." Bai Yi said lightly, "Is it such an honor to be a dog next to the celestial dragons? I'm quite curious about what will happen to me then. Moreover, I have changed my mind now. I found that your mouth is not as smelly as usual. On top of the original smell, you also need to add a tongue." Quote. After saying that, Bai Yi showed a bloodthirsty smile on his face, stared at Theodore and said, "I will also count down to 3. 1. Before the word, Yoruichi, was completely out of his mouth, Ray-san slipped out a small knife from his hand and instantly slashed Theodore's left arm. Moreover, he pinched Theodore's mouth with his left hand and inserted the knife into his mouth. The half-inch long tongue fell out. Theodore's mouth was full of blood and he couldn't even scream. He fainted from the pain on the spot. The knife in Ling San's hand was still dripping blood, and the expression under the mask showed no emotion or anger. "Major General Bai Yi, is this okay now?" But everyone knows that this executive from world government is in a very unhappy mood right now. Bai Yi looked at Ling San with a half-smile, and said coldly, "Go away." Without saying a word, Zero-san lifted up the unconscious Theodore and left. But Lu Qi, Kaku, Bingshan and Frankie, who were watching the whole process from the side, could truly see Bai Yi's arrogance. First didn't take Marine Fleet Admiral Sengoku seriously a few days ago. Now, facing the spy organization under the Tianlong people, they have become even more tough. Use a tough attitude to force the other party to take action against one of their own. Bai Yi looked at the person standing on the Jizhou, looking at the direction in which Ling San and others were leaving, his eyes full of thinking. Today, this time, Ray-san was offended severely. Even if Zero-san worries about his strength, given his status, it is not difficult to find a reasonable way to deal with Bai Yi. In the future, it might have some unexpected impact on Bai Yi. But Bai Yi doesn't like to keep his known enemies around and wait for them to trip him up. Moreover, the foul-mouthed Theodore also disgusted Bai Yi. Just cutting off an arm and tongue is not enough to teach him a profound lesson. Bai Yi felt that maybe he was ready to take action. That night, Bai Yi came to Lu Qi's residence. Lord Byakuya. Lu Qi was not surprised by Bai Yi's sudden visit. Byakuya said directly to gate of opening, "Ray-san holds your life card in his hand, right?" Lu Qi nodded and said, "This is one of the necessary procedures for us to join the spy organization, so that we can have better control. In this case, it will be much easier to implement the plan." So, the two agreed on the future plan, and Bai Yi left Lu Qi's house. The next day, Bai Yi said goodbye to Bingshan and Frankie, and took some marine soldiers aboard the Jishi to prepare to return to marine headquarters. Quick, Dusky and Ain returned on the marine warship they came from. Bai Yi's reason is also quite reasonable, saying that Quick's personal strength cannot support the trip back to marine headquarters. That's why Ain and Dasky were arranged to go there. You must know that during the period when Bai Yi was not in the capital of Seven Waters, Ain and Dasky captured many pirates in the capital of Seven Waters. The reputation of the two beautiful marine swordsmen spread throughout the area near the capital of Seven Waters. This made the two of them extremely confident. When they learned that Quick was not strong enough, they volunteered to go there. Say yes, and guarantee a safe return to marine headquarters. Being continuously despised by Bai Yi and the two beauties made Quick extremely depressed, and he almost squatted in the corner and drew circles. And just as the Jizu and the marine warship set off from the first dock, the curtains were opened in front of the window of a tall building not far away, revealing two eyes. One is full of darkness, the other is full of hatred. The former is 03 and the latter is Theodore. Theodore's left arm was stitched up last night because it was not damaged. It only takes a period of recuperation to restore most functions. But the tongue cannot be stitched back together, and he can only remain mute for the rest of his life. Unless you encounter a devil fruit with special abilities, it is possible to connect the severed tongue. Theodore wrote angrily on the paper, "I want revenge." But Zero-san shook his head and said, "Now we still have to focus on finding CP9. As for Bai Yi, there will definitely be a chance to make this guy suffer a little in the future. Let him understand that the masters of this world are the celestial dragons. Marine is just a dog under the celestial dragons, and his status is not as good as ours. This time Bai Yi slapped him so hard in front of many people that he couldn't get off the stage. If not, he would have taken action against Theodore cruelly. Otherwise, Bai Yi might really attack the two of them directly. This made Zero-san, who considered himself to be of high status, feel a strong sense of crisis. If only someone like this became a Marine executive. Will the Marine in the future still be the Marine of world government? Just thinking about it makes me realize how terrifying this thing is. After this matter was completed, Zero-san decided to investigate Bai Yi. From the investigation of his deeds in the East China Sea, as long as there is a slight loophole in Bai Yi, Ling-san will use it to attack Bai Yi. By then, even if Bai Yi kills him, it will bring him a lot of trouble. After all, his identity is different from that of Theodore. However, Ray-san doesn't focus too much on Bai Yi now. Instead, he took out 7 torn life cards from his arms. They are Lucci, Kaku, Khalifa, Bruno, Jabra, Lion Natsutori, and Otonashi Owl. Ray-san looked at the life cards on the table and murmured. Now the leader of CP9 Feet, Spandam, has disappeared, and these 7 people have lost contact. Under the circumstances where it is impossible to determine whether the 7 of them have rebelled. If they could be found through life cards, it would prove that they had little to do with Spandam's disappearance. As long as it is confirmed after investigation that it has nothing to do with them, they can continue to carry out lurking tasks, but they will need to change their commander. But if they can't be found, they can directly notify the world government to issue a wanted warrant for the 7 of them. Quote, by observing the movement of the life cards, 03 can confirm that these 7 people did not discard the life cards. It seems that they have not betrayed the world government. This discovery made Ling-san's worries lessened a bit. Maybe you can ask them to see if they know about Spandam's disappearance. Maybe we can find some clues from them. The same as CP9 Feet. Theodore's CP8 Feet is also configured with 7 people. Originally, according to Ray-san's idea, each of the CP8s was asked to hold a life card to find the 7 CP9 Feet people. Get them together and ask things. However, the life cards of the 7 people in CP9 Feet suddenly pointed in the same direction at the same time. And the attraction between life cards becomes weaker and weaker. The occurrence of this situation can only prove one problem. That is, the 7 people of CP9 Feet moved in the same direction at the same time. And they are getting further and further away from 03 and the others. This made Ling-san feel more and more uneasy. This CP9 Feet might not be as reassuring as he thought before. However, since they did not throw away the life card, Zero-san, who was in charge of this situation, had to follow the only clue of the life card no matter what. Because this is a mandatory task issued by the world government, 03 had no choice. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.